It is your prisonplanet.tv memberships that fund so much of what we do here in this operation. And then we're more than happy for the TV show after it's aired live, then be leaked out onto the web to tens of millions of people. That's our goal. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Monday, the 19th day of November, 2012. We have a jam-packed radio broadcast lined up for you today. Ray McGovern, the former top CIA analyst who gave the morning briefings to Ronald Reagan and George Herbert Walker Bush, he is going to be joining us in about 30 minutes to give us his breakdown of what's really happening in the Middle East, namely Gaza, but also there was Syria and Egypt. Then, Bruce Fein, Ron Paul's, top policy advisor, when he was running for president and constitutional lawyer, will be coming on to talk about moves to have the states secede, not to create a new government, but use their Declaration of Independence to create whatever government they wish. Well, we choose the Republic. We choose to re-upload the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, because it says whatever government they see fit. Well, we want the foreign bankster occupation government out. That's the best way to do this nonviolently. And if the states line up and put that story out to the public, it isn't about slavery or something, as the media has tried to spin it, totally asinine, then we will win in the hearts and minds of the public. The media will try to script it that it's radicals who want their own countries or want to return to slavery. You've seen those bizarre statements out there that make obviously no sense. We want to return to the Republic and an end to the corrupt empire that's bankrupting us by design. So that's coming up with Bruce Fein. Paul Watson will pop in today, kicks off the national opt-out of the naked body scanners. They've even congressional hearings last week documented that they're saving the naked images. They were caught lying again. That it is giving people cancer, and that the new scanners are just as bad as the old ones. And I mean, I got to tell you, I saw a national poll. I didn't even cover this yesterday, but I have it here in my stack. We've got NBC, ABC News, Huffington Post, DrudgeReport.com. They're all been covering off and on these reports about the opt-out. And this was big 2 years ago when this happened. Now it's happening. Now it's happening again. And Paul Watson, about a month ago, said, hey, let's do this. And he's been working with some activists, and so I said, okay, we'll push for it. And people across the political spectrum don't want to have their dignity violated. They know it's all security theater. They know it's all dog training to train us that we're all basically perpetrators, that we're all prisoners, that we're all guilty until proven New World Order stooges. So it is about training us that we are bad guys, that that the state is God and we're all suspect criminals. And now I saw a national poll out where over 50% of people, and we're going to be covering that. It's over here in this stack. Look how much I've got in the stacks today. If we do a wide-angle shot here, look at all the news I've got in the stacks. I don't think I've probably ever had this much stuff, because if you even go over here on the right-hand side for prisonplanet.tv viewers and pan over there, you can see all of those stacks of news. All of them incredibly important stories that are up at Infowars.com and prisonplanet.com that are just so incredibly important. A lot of it is from today. A lot of it's from yesterday I didn't get to. Things like Obama is going over to Asia, and they're in one country, and there are some little water lizards out there that look a little bit like Komodo dragons. They're in the same family, but they don't attack anything bigger than a rat. And the Secret Service thought they were Komodo dragons that were going to attack the president. Too stupid to know Komodo dragons don't live there. They live only in one area. Certainly nowhere around that. They live there on Galapagos and are endangered. So it just shows the total culture of fear. But it's more than a culture of fear of the nanny state. You had a guy in California over the weekend arrested. He was part of the steampunk art movement that I see all over the place, where you kind of dress like you're in Blade Runner. But it predates Blade Runner, but that's kind of a steampunk look. You got some big boots on, weird futuristic boots, trendy watch. Well, they arrested the guy, and they're charging him for a digital watch, saying any digital watch could be a bomb detonator. So you'll all go to jail for that now. It is Monday, my friends, the 19th day of November 2012. I am your host, Alex Jones, and we're going to have Ray McGovern, former top analyst to Ronald Reagan and George Bush Sr., with the CIA, joining us to break down the whole Middle East Gaza situation in T-minus 23 minutes from now. We are going to have Bruce Fein, constitutional lawyer, top advisor to Ron Paul, his head policy advisor during the campaign. He'll give us his take on secession and my call for the second American Revolution that has gone absolutely supernova viral, thanks to viewers and radio listeners out there like you, having the same ideas in your minds and heart that I have. And also drudgereport.com, posting it for 3 days. Those videos have gone very, very viral. And now it's putting the idea out there, not just of state nullification, not just of states' rights, but that the states created the federalist system. And now that the federal government's been hijacked, the Declaration of Independence says, and so does the Bill of Rights, 9th and 10th Amendment, that those powers not, expressly given to the federal government, there's only 3 powers there, are reserved to the states and the people. But the 9th Amendment goes on to say, hey, not just the states in the 10th, we the people inherently hold all of that legal power to abolish this whenever we see fit. And anything not named here is also our rights. It's a double backup proviso written by some of the best lawyers and statesmen and philosophers and inventors and historians the world has ever seen or had ever seen. And so I do intend next week to continue, and of course throughout this week, to put together pieces that show common law, Magna Carta, Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, Constitution, and show where the legal authority in spades lies. I'm going to talk about that with one of the top constitutional advisors to Congress, lawyer and, of course, doctor of law, Bruce Fein. He will be joining us coming up in about 50 minutes from now. And we're going to have Doc Wallach, I can't wait to do this, in studio. I'll finally meet him in person to talk about a host of different news issues that are out there and why are we seeing an illness epidemic in this country. And we'll also be able to open the phones up some for him while he's here. Now, all of that said, obviously I'm going to get into the Gaza situation. And we're going to get into the economic situation that I mentioned some yesterday, but that we've got to get to more today because it's really ripening towards a new global crisis that they'll use to give the New World Order more power as they hold us hostage financially. And then I have the big stack of news. Paul Watson will be popping out at the bottom of the next hour after Fein leaves us. I got to say, great job again to our listeners. Great job to all the media out there. I said a month ago and I said last week, look, this is not about Alex Jones. This is not about Paul Watson. This is not about Matt Drudge. This is not about Rush Limbaugh. This is not about Rachel Maddow. This is not about Ron Paul. Did I already say Ron Paul? This is about being able to fly places and not be drug off to a private room and have people rip your colostomy bag off or your examine your hysterectomy stitches or pull bandages off of you or try to make old ladies going home to die in Michigan get out of their wheelchair. This is about our dignity, and it's about the federal government creating a new goon force 11 years ago, putting in naked body scanners with all the cancer clusters with the T.S.A., and now arresting people for their shampoo bottle, arresting people for their digital watch, saying your digital watch, you have no criminal record, no affiliation with terrorists, the government got the underwear bomber on the plane. This has all been used to take over our society. Now the TSA is rolling out in the streets, the highways, you name it. This is about a power grab. And we, left, right, center, constitutionalist, libertarian, Muslim, Jew, Christian, atheist, agnostic, theist, deist, we have all got to come together for basic human freedom. Hang together or hang separate. And we've got to say no to the oppressive things that are happening. And this is all political correctness. You know, they won't make a Muslim woman take their head covering off. What do they call those? Burqas at the airports. They won't do it in France either. They won't do it in England. But they will take your wife in a closed room and stick their hands, especially if she's a good-looking woman, because that's what they're after. This is on record, into her underwear and into her body. They will grab a governor's genitals in front of you and squeeze them to make sure they're not bombs, while laughing, saying, "We gonna get photo with the governor." That is literally a quote of what I heard. This is the type of stuff that I have witnessed with my eyeballs. And remember, 2.5 years ago, TSA would deny they were doing the strip searches. They would deny they were doing the grope downs. They would deny all of these things that they are now doing. And we're doing. And now we've got confirmed reports up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com today, where the TSA are covering their badge numbers or inverting them as if we can't read upside down because we have a national poll. The Huffington Post is reporting on it. Guys, it's over there in my stack. There's a new article out on it. There's a separate article out. In fact, it's on my phone. I actually have it punched up. I meant to tell you when I got into the office, but I got distracted 4 or 5 different ways, so I didn't get all the preparation done I wanted to. I get ready at home and come in about an hour before, and I got distracted. But it's something like, I think, 52% of Americans to film TSA, and it was 52% to opt out of body scans, film TSA, and it's a poll, and I need that. Here, actually, you just hand me my little digital tracker slave grid iPhone right over there in the stack. Yeah, just, no, it's the other one. Thank you very much. Thank you, and I can just get it here this way. I meant to get to that, but was unable to. Yeah, here it is. 56%. So my memory was failing because I got distracted a bunch when I got in. 56% of travelers say they'll opt out of TSA scanners next week. And that is a poll that is being carried by the Huffington Post. 5 reasons I'm opting out of the TSA scanners. And you should too. And this is the type of attitude that's going to save America and the rest of the world. When you've got the icon of libertarian, constitutional, real conservatism, drudgereport.com, and then you've got the AOL Time Warner run, George Soros originally funded Huffington Post, they're over there saying they don't like the TSA because everyone hates it. Everyone knows it's a fraud. That I talk to. And we're sick of it. We want to be able to travel in dignity. And you know what? We'd rather face the danger of Al-Qaeda. The Al-Qaeda Libya was turned over to, and now Syria that NATO and our government publicly runs. We're sick of it. We're done with it. We've had enough of it. And so I will cover that more with Watson. Next week is one of the busiest of the year for travel. This came out last Friday. And the last thing you'll probably want to see at the airport when you fly home for Thanksgiving is a long line, especially one that's preventable. But this year, it's different. This Thanksgiving, I'm telling the TSA agents who screen me, I won't walk through their full body scanners. And what came out in congressional hearings last week, we wrote articles about it, it was in mainstream news, they lied about saving the naked images. That was all a lie. Of course it was. And they lied about the radiation test. Folks, because they see you as the enemy. And I'm sick of blaming the TSA people. 10 years ago, the TSA folks were just people that wanted $25 an hour. It's actually pretty good pay. I call them, McDonald's level employees. Well, that's the training, but they actually get a pretty good little paycheck for the 2-week training course. They give them a 1-day training course. They could potentially tell if you're lying or not. Now they're truth tellers. I mean, only the most gifted people with years of training can really tell if somebody's lying or not. And then that's not 100%. Because even if you feel guilty and feel like you're on the spot, you'll act like you're guilty. Same thing with lie detectors. Incredibly gifted people have trouble really using a lie detector machine to tell if you're lying. That's why they're inadmissible in court. And then what if the government's corrupt and lying and saying the lie detector said you were guilty? And we know that's happened. Same thing with DNA. They've got all our DNA. If you're 40 years or younger, it's 40 years now, worldwide it's happened. In all the globalist-controlled nations, most nations, they've taken your blood and put it in databases. At birth, they take ampules, folks, not just the little, the little drops they put. Why don't you do the blood test here? Oh, we send it off to the health department. It's the law, they lie and say. It isn't the law. But side issue, the TSA wasn't bad up front. Now, though, it's gotten so invasive, they've run off all the reasonable people. We're told they're just going to search bags, have a little increased security because of 9/11, which we know was staged. But it sounded reasonable. And now they're on the highways. Now they're at the malls. Now they're at the political events. Now they're at races. Now they're everywhere. And now they admit the DNA database was a lie as well, and they were keeping it. It wasn't a blood test. But he goes on in the article saying that there are a whole bunch of different activist groups that are out there saying opt out this week, don't be part of it, and film the TSA. And so you've got TV stations, national, local, you've got print media. This thing is big, and polls are showing 56% plan to opt out. That's great. Okay, finishing up with the whole TSA situation, and we'll get back into it in about an hour with Paul Watson joining us. We are kicking off the national opt-out of the naked body scanner protest day. We are kicking that off today, and it's going to run for a week, and it's important to videotape them as well. But this is what you need to understand. When you say I'm not going on the naked body scanner, when we first called for this 3 years ago, and this started 3 Thanksgivings ago, hard to believe time has moved that fast, the TSA was saying, it's the law, we're going to make you or you won't fly. Well, A, there was no law. That was another lying fraud. And B, for a week, they just turned the scanners off because they don't want to give you a chance to ever say no to them. They don't want to give you a chance to ever resist them. They don't want to give you a chance to show the power that the people have. They do not want left, right, and center and outside of that box to ever get together and realize we'd have solidarity for basic liberty. The system, I guarantee you, hates the fact that the Drudge Report and the Huffington Post and InfoWars and CBS 42 and so many other media outlets, I mean, all over the country, newspaper reporters, TV reporters, radio talk show hosts, website news directors are all saying, hey, let's run articles about this. Let's talk about this. Let's cover this. Let's say no to this. That's the spirit that will bring down the globalist. And that's the spirit that can create the secessionist movement, not to create a new country, but to restore the republic, because the states made the federal government. The states created federalism. So if we have the globalists who've come in with their gaggle of crooks and bought off the government at every different level, at the federal level, and now they want to federalize everything because they have that federal beachhead, we have to fight them at the state level with states' rights, Constitution, Bill of Rights, lawsuits, nullification, but also get the legislatures to come together and say, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and pull out to reconstitute the federal government in an emergency reorganization. And here's why that needs to happen, and here's the key. The globalists are bankrupting us through federal policies to bring us into a globalist emergency reorganization. They're doing that. They're bringing us into an emergency globalist reorganization. That's what they've done in Europe. They set up the euro 12 years ago officially. 60 years ago, 1957 is when the real treaty got signed, the Treaty of Rome. Go read it. It's online. And there's all news articles and old photos about it happening. The Treaty of Rome, the Treaty of London a few years before that really started it at the embryonic level, but that was quiet. Treaty of Rome, but side issue. And they are conquering us via stealth. Through this, they've bankrupted Europe. They're now absorbing what's left of the national sovereignty of the countries into a super Europe run by, quote, banking technocrats who want a, quote, 100 trillion in additional taxes from the Western world. Associated Press, London Telegraph, Newsweek, you name it. That's what they said at Davos last year. They want $100 trillion in additional taxpayer money. $100 trillion of your money to fix things. You notice they want round 3 of Greek bailout. And most of the money goes to globalist banks. But then they say, oh, it's Greece's fault. No. The debt is shining on the derivatives. And it's going to be the same thing here. So what do? Do we let them come in and emergency reorganize us? When they've staged all this collapse to make us debt serfs to them by signing on to their debt? Or do we have the states that created the federal government pull out to recognize it's a fraudulent instrument and a fraudulent takeover to then reconstitute the federal government? The states made the federal government. See, they always want you to think secession is making a new country. No. It's secession. It's more than secession. It is reconstitution, I think is the word. A secession properly called, but people won't know what that is if I call it a reconstitution. Because what do you when you reconstitute? You put things back together. We've been conquered. Just like the states are moving to block the T.S.A. What do the feds threaten? If you don't let our agents seize control of your travel hubs, your infrastructure, that's what an occupying army does, we'll put F-16s in the air and block air traffic. Throw me in that briar patch. Let's have that confrontation. This isn't a confrontation over slavery. This isn't even a confrontation over secession. It's that we've been conquered. So that's why the T.S.A. opt-out is so important. Welcome, my friends. Again, thank you for joining us. We are 33 minutes into this worldwide transmission. Coming up, constitutional lawyer, advisor to Ron Paul, his chief policy advisor in the campaign, advisor to Congress, Bruce Fein, is going to join us. I want a secession movement not to create a new country, but to kick out the private Federal Reserve and the multinationals that have taken over the federal government that have turned our country into a system run by authoritarian psychopaths, to quote Ron Paul. And so we're going to be talking with Bruce Fein about that. Ron Paul has come out again today. Ron Paul defends growing secessionist movement. Retiring congressman notes principle is deeply American. And the states created the federal government. I don't want the states to create a new government. I want them to restore the republic. Very delicate difference there, but also glaring at the same time. There's a paradox there. I'm going to try to continue my call for the Second American Revolution against secret arrest, the police state, the FEMA camps, the new Army manuals that say re-education centers in them, the new bailouts they're going to demand when they further collapse the economy, just like the same group of banks are doing in Europe. All of that's coming up. Also, my national call for opt-out week is being picked up by media across the United States, from CBS News to the Huffington Post. We're going to be covering that. Videos are pouring in of people videotaping the T.S.A., standing up to them, handing out our flyers, and resisting this federalization prisoner training program. It's basically Fallujah occupation training. They even admit that. Now, joining us is Ray McGovern for the balance of the hour, the next 25 minutes. And he was a top CIA analyst who gave morning briefings to Ronald Reagan, George Herbert Walker Bush. He also, of course, famously confronted globalists many times, including Rumsfeld, about lies about WMDs, and nailed him when Rumsfeld would say, I never said that. And then he would quote back where Rumsfeld had said that. He's no stranger to this show. He was also an Army officer during Vietnam. And he's fluent in Russian, German, Spanish, and he holds an MA in Russian from Fordham University and certificate in theological studies from Georgetown. He's also a graduate of Harvard Business School's advanced management program. He also holds a certificate of theological studies from Georgetown. And he's been married 50 years, and he beat cancer a few years ago thanks to God's good graces, and we're happy to have him amongst the living because he's a real patriot who spoke out, one of the first senior intelligence officers to speak out about 9/11 smelling of an inside job. Ray, great to have you. It's always, though, when we got a new war going on, we have Libya turned over to al-Qaeda. We have Syria now being attacked via al-Qaeda forces and Saudi Arabian forces. Out of Turkey. I want to get your take on that later. You've got Gaza. I mean, what happened here? Why is this happening? I mean, I know you were a chief analyst. You can give us, you visited many times these war zones, and including Gaza, if a memory serves me, when it's being bombarded, if memory serves, you've been part of so many of these investigations. And is it because the UN was about to recognize Gaza and the other Palestinian areas as observer countries, observer status, giving them observer seats in the UN? Was it kind of like China doesn't want Taiwan to be recognized? I mean, why did this suddenly flare up? Because I know there's rockets being fired from time to time. I know there's Israeli attacks from time to time. Was it because the military leader of Hamas had a peace treaty, as Haaretz newspapers reporting? Thank you for joining us, Ray McGovern.
You're welcome, Alex. It's good to be back with you. Gaza, of course, is on the front burner. What we have here is a situation where Netanyahu is going to be running for re-election in January. And I'm afraid that he's playing to the worst in the unreconstructed Jewish sentiment in Israel that thinks that every now and then you have to mow down the Palestinians like blades of grass. Now, why do I say that? Well, I'm sort of an old guy, but there are some younger people getting out of the CIA these days. And one of them is Elizabeth Murray, who is occupying a very, very senior position, Deputy National Intelligence Officer for the Near East. And she left 2 years ago. And I asked her if she would recount some of her experiences, and she did. She reports that less than 2 years ago, she was invited to a very, very prominent think tank in Washington, having to do with the Middle East. And the think tank was something she was not willing to disclose because it was all off the record. But this is what she talked about. She said that there was a remark there made that when the death toll was mentioned with respect to the first attack, such attack on Gaza, which, as you may remember, Alex, came right between the time that Barack Obama was elected the first time and when he took office. In other words, December, January 2008-9. When that happened, they were discussing this, and one of the experts, a very prominent expert on the panel, smiled enigmatically and said, quote, "It's unfortunate, but every now and then you have to mow the lawn being the Palestinians." Now, that remark, which likens killing countless Palestinian women, children, and men, likening that with trimming the grass was pretty egregious. But instead of bringing opprobrium, there was light tittering around the room. Highly educated, well-paid Middle East experts, not a single one demurred from this black humor. Now, that's the core of it, because you, Alex, and I, and your listeners are not guilty of what's happening today in Gaza, but we're responsible. We're accountable. You know why? Because it's our government, and to the degree we still are a democracy, we are responsible for the use of our taxpayer money going into the kind of weaponry that the Israelis are using, F-16s, all manner of other weaponry today in Gaza.
DU, white phosphorus, a lot of illegal stuff.
Pardon?
White phosphorus is, was used a few years ago. That was confirmed.
Yeah, you see the bodies of children coming out, and people say, well, that's collateral damage. Well, it's not collateral damage. I'm remembering back, I'm old enough to remember the stories right after World War II. And some of the prominent generals who were asked at Nuremberg, what about the children? You know what they said? They said a lot of those children witnessed what happened to their parents. The others are not old enough to remember, but they'll hear the stories. And so they would be against us. They would oppose us. So it's necessary to kill the children as well. Now, am I making an invidious comparison? I am making an invidious comparison, but it happens to be not far off the mark. They don't spare their children, might as well not spare anyone, because they're just, after all, blades of grass that we need to mow every 4 years. And the reason we can do that, A, with U.S. weaponry, and B, with a U.S. president that really desperately needs a backbone implant. You have the president defending this action, unconscionably defending it. You have the Israeli defense minister yesterday saying, we are so grateful for the United States because without their help and full support, we never would be able to do this. On the record, they're bragging about it. Now, what does that mean? You want to create terrorists? You want to have another 9/11? You want to stir up the kinds of attacks that you had in Benghazi? Well, this is the perfect way to do it. So who profits from all this? Well, this may be a little skip here, but if you ask cui bono, who profits from this? It's what Eisenhower warned against, plus, okay? The military, industrial, homeland security, intelligence, congressional, and not least, media complex. They're all in it together. They all want this long war about which the divine Petraeus has bragged. Petraeus, of course, said, our grandchildren are going to be fighting these wars. Well, that's really good for business, okay? And it's great business opportunities in Israel, not only for the United States business contractor or the military contractors, but for those in Western Europe who profiteer.
Sure. Well, Cheney said it was going to be a 100-year war, and that leads me to this next point. Regardless of which side people are on, and of course, I understand, as you just stated, that's what I thought was happening yesterday and stated is the military-industrial complex, it just wants new wars. It doesn't care if it's not in our interest because they're not caring about American interests. They're caring about weapons sales and continued profits. The big mega banks are busy looting Europe, looting the U.S. We've seen Mark Faber, Jim Rogers, all these prestigious analysts come out and say the big banks want this because it's a political diversion. War is the health of the big state. And then now, if there is some real terror attacks or staged or underwear bombers put on planes, now the T.S.A. can continue what they're doing. And I hear all these good old boys on talk radio. It's one of the only racial slurs that's allowed, and I hear on mainline talk radio where they call Arabs, horrible pejoratives. We all know the terms, and I'll just say them here for documentary evidence. Raghead, sand, N-word, all of this is acceptable, and I just want to tell all the good old boys something. Most of them can't pick out the countries over there. They don't know the culture, the history. They don't know our government has radicalized these people since Operation Ajax and beyond, since the 50s at least, the British before that. Our government's using al-Qaeda against all these other countries as proxies while saying give our rights up. Hillary said we've got to go into Syria because al-Qaeda's getting a foothold. Well, yeah, our government put them there along with France, who's the chief criminal, from as much as I can tell. I mean, I want to ask you about that, just some quick questions here. But my whole issue is it's not even that we're in the moral wrong. It's now reached a la-la land, and this whole police state, the globalists, the mega banks, they hate us as much as they hate the Muslims. It's not, and I just don't get how all authoritarians, whether it was Hitler or Lenin or Stalin, they always pick a minority group to set the precedent, killing. And I hear this talk, just mow the gas parking lot. Those are rats. Kill those Palestinian rats. And I'm like, whoa, even if you want to side with Israel, some of you out there, okay? Because, there's all these different angles. Israel's very diverse. There's different groups over there as well. A lot of Israelis are against this. I get that Israel's under attack. People are always demonizing it. And so people tend to pick a side. Getting outside of sides, we're dehumanizing ourselves by allowing the system to say that these Arabs aren't humans. And I'm ranting here, sir, but what's your take on what I've just said?
Well, on the last point, Alex, I had dinner with Miko Peled, the author of The General's Son, the general being a very prominent Israeli general from 1967 on. And he was telling me about a book his sister has just written about what Israeli children learn about Palestinians. And in their school books, there are no pictures of Palestinians. No pictures and no text that approximates the accurate story. And so by the time they get to be 18, they're ready to go into the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, without any notion that these other people are human too. That's what you need. You need people who don't look exactly like you do, and you need to bêtoir them. You know? In other words, make them into the demons that you need to fight. Now, it's not going to last. And there is a little good news, Alex, that I'm happy to report to you, okay? The Washington Post today, first column, headline. Everyone have it? Well, do I have it right here? No, I don't. Israeli attacks, family killing 12, civilian toll up. I don't know how they allowed this into the Washington Post, but there it is. So we're getting a little bit more news coverage. I want to follow that up by saying that Fox News, CBS News, some of the other main news bureaus are being let in from Egypt into Gaza. This is new. This was not allowed the last time, okay? Now, true, the Israelis are bombing the towers from which people can transmit emails and others, but still, people are going in. So my suggestion, Alex, is get your videographers together, get on the next plane to Cairo, get into Gaza, and broadcast directly from there and tell the truth to the American people. You have a huge audience. Let them know what's really going to happen before even worse happens. And what I'm afraid of is an Israeli army invasion. As you know, they've called up 17,000 army troops, and they're poised on the border, and they're going to mow some more grass unless people like us speak up.
Well, that's the other issue. If these Palestinians are dogs, are rats, are grass, like the insiders say in these meetings, why not let us see it then? I mean, why is Israel bombing the TV stations and the civilian infrastructure? Because they don't want these images coming out. And if it is so beautiful, I mean, I tell all these good old boys that say, yeah, let's kill some Arabs while our troops over there breathing DU. I say you ought to go over. Because I've seen our army troops in the film footage that, crying when they, see little kids with their bottom half blown off begging for mommy. I mean, all these tough guys, why don't they go over and see some kids with their lower halves blown off begging for mama? Instead of just saying, they're not human, kill them. I mean, it's disgusting to hear these tough guys getting off on this.
Well, Alex, you put your finger on another reality here, and that is that the top military brass in this country, with the possible exception of General Dempsey, for whom I have some respect, are just like the top military brass during Vietnam. Now, George Ball, who was Undersecretary of State at the time and was right in with all the policy making that was going on, described the Joint Chiefs of Staff under John Kennedy as a sewer of deceit in quotes. Now, how about these demigods like Petraeus, like General Allen? What about them? Well, I don't really care about their sexual indiscretions except what it means. I mean, Allen's a Marine, right? Semper fidelis, always faithful. Well, except for your wife, apparently. But what it means to me is these guys have a different orientation on life. They don't see the broken babies. They don't see the people killed. They're interested in seeing yet another star. Now, they all have 4 stars, but they can still get some spaghetti, some merit badges, or whatever it is that Petraeus sticks on his.
And they're running around with a bunch of tarts. I mean, this is what they do while people are dying, the troops are being ill-paid, everything's falling apart on record. They're running around whoremongering. Boy, these are real men.
Literally, they are above the battle, so to speak, huh? Above the battle. So if they're above the battle, they can indulge in these kinds of things. People say, well, Ray, don't be sanctimonious, for God's sake. And I'm not trying to be. And don't be vindictive. I'm not trying to be vindictive. I saw what happened to my friends in Vietnam, okay? You don't have to be vindictive to be just, okay? And when you watch what's going on, my God, well, take Petraeus. We know that we know that it took 2 oaths, right? 1 oath to his wife in marriage, 1 oath to the Constitution. Okay. Now, if he lies about progress in the war, if he knows full well, he's a bright guy, okay? He knows full well that he's lying when he says there's been progress, but it's tentative and it's reversible. He said that about 18 times, and Congress all goes, So he's lying about that. But he's being unfaithful to his wife. What does that mean? Well, there's a Bible verse. It says, it's out of Luke, I think, and it says, he that cannot be trusted in small things should not be given power over larger things. Now, there is some truth to that. And to the degree the American people have been brainwashed into think these guys are heroes, to the degree they think, well, what's it? Faithfulness, semper fidelis, always faithful. Well, these guys weren't faithful here. Do you think it might be possible that they're lying to us about the war? Wow. Well, they are lying to us about the war, and there's not one good reason why any person should die in Afghanistan from now on. All the troops should be out of there right away. We should stop killing them, and they'll stop killing us.
Unless they put al-Qaeda in everywhere. I said when they were taking over Libya starting 2 years ago, that I said within 2 years, I said, you watch, we'll be hearing we have to invade all of Africa because of al-Qaeda. It didn't even take 2 years. A year and a half after all this started, they are now, I can pull up the Washington Post headlines, you name it. You know, Hillary says al-Qaeda in Syria. Oh my gosh, al-Qaeda flag in Libya. I mean, how dumb do they think we are that the same al-Qaeda they used in the 80s against the Russians, that they used in the 90s against the Serbs to get a war stirred up, are now being put in? Thousands of missiles are missing. I want to get your take on that, what you really think happened in Benghazi, and where all of this is going. And then now we're being told, oh, we've got to take your rights. T.S.A.'s got to be on the streets now because al-Qaeda got missiles in Libya. Yeah, because our criminal government helped them take over. I mean, you can see them creating the next group of wars. It is really very devilish.
Well, you're right. It's very interesting. There are many layers to the Benghazi thing. Let's start with my friend Hillary Clinton, who had her goons beat me up real bad there just 2 years ago while she was giving a speech. All I did was stand up silently and turn my back on her. So she's not my favorite person, but let's take what she said after Benghazi. She said, we freed those people. We helped them achieve independence from Gaddafi. How could they turn on us like this? You know, I don't understand it. Well, she's smart enough to understand it. When you bomb the hell out of a country, when you kick down doors in the middle of the night, when you do, we don't say regime overthrow anymore, we say regime change. When you do regime change, and it results in the despicable death of a, whether he's hated or loved dictator, you don't do what they did, what these French mostly did to Gaddafi, and to Saddam Hussein for that matter. You know, you don't do that if you're a civilized animal. Okay, so when all this happens, guess what? People are not going to like you. There are going to be all kinds of people that don't like you. And if you don't have a plan, worse still, if you don't know who these people are out in Benghazi, well, you know, what would you do? Well, you send the CIA in. Now, it's an open secret that that wasn't a consulate in Benghazi. That was a CIA station. Lots of CIA guys there. What were they doing? Well, they were trying to figure out who it was that is insurging there, or militing, or terrorizing things. Okay. Number two, it's revealed by Petraeus' sweetheart that they were holding prisoners there. They were interrogating prisoners, not only Libyans but other Africans. Now,
It was a torture base, a black site.
What's the big deal there? Well, the president issued an executive order as soon as he came into office saying the CIA shall no longer hold prisoners in black sites for interrogation or any other purpose. So if what Paula Broadwell says, and which Fox News of all places confirms, there were prisoners in that annex, or what do you want to call it, and that they were released to Libyan authorities as everyone else got out of Dodge. Well, let's, number one, how does she know that? Is that pillow talk? Number two, is it true that they were holding prisoners? And number three, is it also true, as she suggests, that that was the reason they attacked the consulate? Now, when Hillary Clinton, can't fathom what's going on, and the Republicans hold this big hearing right before the election, Congressman Issa from California. And they got a star witness, and he's a great big guy. His name is Nordstrom, and he's a State Department regional security officer. And he asked for more protection, and he didn't get it, okay? So what? What does Nordstrom say? He punctures a big hole in that balloon because he says, on second thought, if we had 6 more feet of concrete around that, and if we had 6 or 7 or 10 more Marines, it still wouldn't have made any difference. They had what I've never seen in my 14 years in the diplomatic security service. I've never seen such an attack, well equipped, well planned. Well, guess what? That's what's going to happen. This is just the first of such attacks. When you do that to people like that, they get very angry, and it's very easy to get weapons. You asked about the surface to or shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles. Between 10,000 and 20,000 such missiles are free, roaming about, we don't know where, in Libya. That may be one reason why we had so many guys in Benghazi trying to figure out, hey, anybody see any shoulder-fired SAM missiles around here? You know, it's so ridiculous. You know, if you're going to do all these horrendous things, at least you should have some sort of plan and know something about the players. Hillary Clinton is a disaster, in my view, and the people who go along with her, the Secretary of Defense and the CIA guys, and John Brennan, who runs the kill list, they're all a bunch of war criminals. And
sure, let me ask you this briefly. Where do you see all of this going and the al-Qaeda in Syria and all of it? Where is it all headed? I mean, they're clearly trying to destabilize the whole place and get a civil war going on between Shiites and Sunnis.
Well, in Syria, it's an incredible mess. I don't understand exactly what's happening there. I don't think anybody understands what's happening there or what's likely to happen. When Hillary Clinton says, well, we got to depose the head of Syria, again, without any plan, well, first off, I don't think other countries should go around saying the president of Syria has to leave. So, you know, there was the beginning of an Arab Spring there.
I'll tell you what, do 5 more minutes with us if you can, and then we've got Bruce Fein coming up. 5 more minutes with Ray McGovern, then Bruce Fein on the states' rights movement defeating this globalist takeover. Ray McGovern, former top CIA analyst and a political activist, civil rights activist. RayMcGovern.com is his website. It links over to all the great essays he's written. RayMcGovern.com. Should have given that out earlier. We're going to shift gears into some other issues with Bruce Fein, a constitutional lawyer, on the whole secession movement to re-energize the republic, not destroy the republic. I'm going to break that down with him and get his take on it. Ray, finishing up with the point you were making, and then I've got a question for you. Dealing with America's moral authority. Go ahead, Ray. Finish the point you were making.
Well, I think we were talking about whether Hillary Clinton or anyone else can protect our diplomats from the rage that that people who are being oppressed by people we prop up, whether we can protect them, and we can't. And to send a fellow like Ambassador Stevens, a brilliant Arabist, into that kind of danger, or to allow him to exist in that kind of danger, is foolhardy in the extreme. So what do we end up with? We end up with difficulty in even having people in touch with the indigenous folks that they're supposed to be in touch with. Our reputation and our standing in that part of the world has plummeted, not only under President Bush, but under President Obama as well.
And again, good old boys just say nuke everybody. They don't understand. This is all being used to take our liberties. We've been conquered by these special interests. I don't know if you've seen Ron Paul's farewell address, but in the 49 minutes, he says we are run by authoritarian psychopaths. That's a quote. That it's a premeditated authoritarian takeover. That it's bipartisan. These are all quotes. Bipartisan scientific takeover by special interest. And that the general public in America is immoral. I mean, and by immoral, they're decadent, they're not awake. Sure, there's a large minority that's awake, but, I mean, those that know history know we are really, really, really a big, giant, menacing evil now. So, I mean, do you agree with that statement? Did you see the speech, and where do you think this is going?
Well, Alex, I think when you and I get back from Gaza, we got to fix this. Okay, we have a new president. He's got a 4-year mandate, a real mandate now. He says he wants us to make him do it. We've got to get out in the streets and do precisely that. The kinds of things that he himself is responsible for, authorizing the killing of U.S. citizens, signing on New Year's Eve the National Defense Authorization Act. Those kinds of things can be reversed, and we have to make him do it. The reason he did the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, was because he's afraid of us. And what happened? Well, not enough of us showed up to be afraid of. Now we have to change that. Martin Luther King famously said, sometimes you have to put your body into it. That's what I'm going to do as soon as we get back from Gaza.
Wow. You know, so you want me to go with you to Gaza?
Yep.
It's like Obi-Wan Kenobi saying, you must go with me to Alderaan.
Well, you know, there are a lot of Western journalists getting in. That's the difference here. The last time around, 4 years ago, when the Palestinians suffered 1,400 dead as opposed to 10 Israelis, they weren't letting any Western journalists in. The situation has changed in Egypt right now. They're getting in. I think we need to all go in there, broadcast from there daily to prevent worse from happening. Because as I said before, Alex, there are 17,000 mobilized Israelis now. They're on the border. I think chances are better than even that within the next few days, they'll be invading Gaza just as they did 4 years ago.
Well, I got to tell you, so I guess you're about to leave to Gaza. You could report to us right here. It's not that I'm even afraid of being killed. It's the whole issue of traveling. It's like I didn't go to Bilderberg in Europe last year. I probably should have. I am planning to start trying to travel to more of these things. Ray, I mean, are you about to hop a flight to Cairo?
My friends are. My question has to do with my wife's illness, whether I can, in good conscience, leave her at this point.
No, I know you've been over there quite a few times. So, well, listen, we'll have to talk more. I'll try to call you after the show today, sir. Thank you so much.
Sounds great. Okay, thanks.
There goes Ray McGovern. Welcome back. I am your host, Alex Jones, and we are joined by constitutional lawyer Bruce Fein. Bruce Fein, as Associate Deputy Attorney General and General Counsel to the Federal Communications Commission under President Ronald Reagan. He served as Research Director for Republicans on the Joint Congressional Committee on Covert Arms Sales to Iran and on the American Bar Association's Committee on Presidential Signing Statements. He has been a visiting fellow for the Constitutional Studies at the Heritage Foundation and an adjunct scholar at the American Enterprise Institute. Mr. Fein is a founding member of Bruce Fein and Associates, Inc., a law corporation, is a principal of the public advocacy organization, the Litchfield Group. He is the author of Constitutional Peril, The Life and Death Struggle for Our Constitution and Democracy, an American Empire Before the Fall. Mr. Fein presently serves as the senior policy advisor to Congressman Ron Paul and to his presidential campaign, lynchfieldgroup.org. And I appreciate him coming on short notice. I tried to get him Friday, but he's here with us. Here with us on the radio now to recap, because we just started a new hour as we go to him. I'm looking at all this, and I'm not coming up with something novel or new, but with an important twist on it, or an untwist, is the way I'd put it. The media always sells states' rights, if states say they have any rights, as secession, going back to slavery. You know, that's like saying going back to the Roman Empire, going back to Adam and Eve, going back to the, I mean, it's just totally made up and a joke. Why do we even have states if there's no states' rights? 9th Amendment, 10th Amendment. We have a constitutional lawyer who advises Congress to give us his take on this. But here's my basic idea. The states created the government. They created federalism. They created the whole system we're under. The Declaration of Independence states it's our right and duty to throw off a government when it becomes destructive. Well, I've got the headline article. We can put it up on screen for TV viewers, radio listeners, with the headline, Bankers Declare They've Conquered U.S. and Europe, with dozens of video clips, the news, Times of London, AP, Time Magazine saying 6 mega banks took over with the Federal Reserve and have signed us on to their derivatives, and they're running the policies of bankrupting the states, of going over the financial cliff, because they stand to gain from rack and ruin, because they're the ones that loan us our own money back. So what we do is, you don't just do half measures. You have the states stand up and say, just like they're saying in Texas again, unanimous vote to arrest T.S.A. when they grope your genitals. That's a states' rights move. The feds threatened to run an armed blockade with F-16s last year. So the Senate killed it. Well, we kicked the folks in the Texas Senate out that did that. Now the bill's been reintroduced. We had the state rep on that did it Friday. That's states' rights right there. We'll take that to the next level. Have the states get together in a new constitutional convention with the states, with the legislative heads, to go back to the states and get them to pass a declaration that we don't recognize the current federal government, and to reconstitute the federal government, Bill of Rights, Constitution. It's a re-upload, and order them. Now, then you've got to break down the plan of doing that, but just getting the states in motion to start the move towards secession, to not create a new country, but to secede, to recognize we've been conquered. by corporate fraudulent interest to re-upload the Bill of Rights and Constitution via the Declaration of Independence. Just that bully pulpit of the states and members of the House and Senate federally who agree with us and others will create the movement and the attention and the focal point to rediscover the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, 9th and 10th Amendment. And so that's my idea, that when I say Second American Revolution, I'm saying it should be centered around the states, also with beachheads in the federal government. But the federal government itself is a globalist beachhead that's taken us over. All right, sir, thank you for coming on. You've heard my basic idea I'm throwing out there. We need that focal point. We need bold moves. They're calling any states' rights, you know, racist secessionism. I say we trump that by saying, throw me in that briar patch. Constitutional lawyer Bruce Fein, what do you say, sir?
That's a very deep question, Alex, and if we can move forward methodically, I think that's the best way to do it. First of all, the first expression of state dissatisfaction with what was thought to be federal tyranny came in 1798 when the Congress passed the Alien and Sedition Act signed by John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, then of Virginia, passed what orchestrated was called the Virginia and Kentucky Resolution, saying that in the opinion of the legislature, the Sedition Act flouted the First Amendment by violating freedom of speech. It, among other things, forbade language that brought Congress or the president into the contempt or ridicule of the American people, and also the Alien Act had denied due process. And ultimately, that both acts expired in 1800 when Mr. Jefferson was elected president. But that was, I suppose, the first expression of a method of state protest against an overreaching federal government, orchestrated, said by James Madison, who was known as the father of the Constitution. He was the primary drafter at the convention in 1787. Now, there are alternate vehicles, I think, Alex, that could be utilized to try to get the focus on states' rights or a federalist system reinstituted, other than the one that you've suggested. These are what you might call adaptations. First, the Constitution itself in Article 5 recognizes a power for two-thirds of the states to force Congress to summon a constitutional convention to revamp, propose amendments to the charter document. And then if the convention by two-thirds votes proposes an amendment, then it would go back to the state legislatures to be ratified by three-quarters. Now, this particular method has never been utilized before in amending the Constitution. It's all followed an alternate course where two-thirds of the House and the Senate propose an amendment that's submitted to the states. But that's at least one method of doing this. Now, what you've actually suggested, Alex, is not all that different from the process by which we segued from the Articles of Confederation into the Constitution itself. It was thought that the Articles were deficient. Delegates met in Annapolis and said, well, why don't we convene a convention to so-called revise the Articles of Confederation? At that time, we simply had a unicameral you're a single branch of government. A legislative body basically was the entire federal government. Had no authority to raise taxes or do much of anything. It was quite weak. And the delegates to the Constitutional Convention, even though they were empowered only to revise the Articles, came up with our current Constitution under which we live, proposed it to ratification to the states. Ultimately, all ratified. 9 was essential in order to put the Constitution into motion. But that was a way in which the existing framework of government, the Articles of Confederation, was revamped wholesale. And that's what you're proposing, Alex, is a variation of that kind of methodology. Now, the difference, I suppose, is that the Articles and the government at that time was very tiny. And so the transition was not a wrench, whereas today you've got a Leviathan as the federal government. It's everywhere where it shouldn't be, and the possible resistance could be greater. But there's nothing that would be novel in American history that suggests your idea is outlandish or fringe. Now, one of the things also, I think, Alex, that has to be underscored is why is it that we think it would be a useful idea or exercise to revive federalism? And the reason is twofold in my judgment. First of all, it creates competition in good government. That is, if one state creates an oppressive system, the citizens can move to another state. The taxes go there, the innovation goes there, and otherwise. And so you have this constant feedback between the government and its citizens that finds expression in the places citizens choose to live.
And we see that illustrated by states that have less taxes and less government. Even if they're deserts, they become more productive than, even very lush areas. Or look at Texas, a magnet because of lower taxes, even though they're actually quite high, just compared to the rest of the country, they're quite low. Texas is booming while the rest of the country collapses.
Well, that's right, and there's a recent phenomenon, if you kill, in many states because they did not have any caps on medical malpractice damages in personal injury cases. I remember recently in West Virginia, the doctors all said, "Well, we're not going to perform any more surgery unless you put a cap. We're all going to Louisiana." And with that threat, West Virginia then came up with a cap. So that's a way in which the outlet of choosing a different state can check government overreach. And then the second reason is simply because we understand that government is largely, trading off and balancing interests with competing groups in society, and so the states are able, in some sense, because they may be more homogeneous, to adapt statutes and laws and policies that are more consistent with the greatest number of citizens than in a larger context where when Congress enacts a law, it's got to have application in very rural areas, like North Dakota, or sparsely populated like Alaska, as well as California and New York. And it's much more difficult to draft a statute that suits 50 states than suits only one. And so on that score as well, federalism is superior to a central government. It doesn't mean that you don't need a central government in order to have armed forces, to defend ourselves, and there's some things that a central government is required to do. And that a simple state could not. And there's always a risk, of course, that one state could become oppressive, and you would need some outside force in order to encourage and provide the spark to change things. And I think we saw that in the South during Jim Crow. There's no doubt that there was outside pressure that was needed to ultimately prevent the oppression based upon race. But that's got to be done judiciously. It's a balance, like everything is. That's
sure. The two are a checks and balance, and you're going to be with us till about 40 after, and I appreciate you having time to join us today. We're going to go to break, and I want to come back. I understand you're top constitutional lawyer here. In layman's terms, I'm simply saying if the states created the federal government, we have the federalist system, then we should use that system to reestablish the real federalist system. Instead of right now, we just have a federal government run by special interest running over us that's an obvious tyranny. Use the states to take the federal government back. I want to hear ideas you've got that are alternates as well, sir. All right, Alex Jones here, back live with Bruce Fein. He'll be with us till 40 after. Then Paul Joseph Watson's joining us to break down the National Opt-Out Day, which is another example, or opt-out week, where people just exercise their power. You could have the states prosecute T.S.A. when they're out of control. They're already out of their jurisdiction. They're not even sworn officers. Bruce Fein, constitutional lawyer, advisor to Congress, advisor to Ron Paul, as chief advisor on policy, joins us. In layman's terms, sir, in this short segment, I understand you're saying that my basic, statement is codified in things that have been done before. Put that in layman's terms for people and talk about states' rights, versus what the federal government's doing. And your point during the break you made, that states can also become tyrannies of their own. So how do you balance that?
Well, we balance that by having an active citizenry and impeaching and removing from office. Government officials are not faithful to their oath that generally keep government limited and austere and frugal, and to make certain that liberty is the rule and government involvement the exception. As I said, you can have states out of control. At the time of the founding, it was Rhode Island was the outlier that was enacting all sorts of laws to cancel debts and was viewed with great suspicion by the founding fathers. So it's not we don't automatically get over the touchdown line just by delegating powers or restoring powers to the states. Without an active citizenry, any kind of government ultimately will fall.
Sure, but obviously things have all swung towards the federal government itself, globalist. So what do you think is a good plan to try to get the states as a focal point to reignite liberty?
Well, the way in which you can do it with regard to the current situation is just to have 2/3 of the state legislatures petition for the holding of a constitutional convention. And that could be a convention that basically is a successor to the convention of 1787 in Philadelphia that wrote our Constitution. And the delegates could start from ground up and recast the disbursement of power between the federal government and the states. But the one thing, Alex, that I think destroyed the federalism that was conceived by the Founding Fathers was the income tax amendment. Because when the federal government got all the money, they just told the states, hey, if you want the money, you have to do what we tell you to do.
And they also got the senators.
That's a very homogeneous country with very little, if any, state ability to resist the federal government because the temptation of the money was too great. If you take that money away from the federal government, and reduce the taxing power, and the spending ability, don't worry, the states' rights would revive very quickly. And if you look at the special interests, why do they all run and try to control Washington as opposed to the states, relatively speaking? Because that's where the money is. That's where the giveaways are staggering. I mean, look at the TARP money. Tens, hundreds of billions of dollars, even trillions of dollars. And once you stop that spigot going to the federal government, don't worry, the special interests will drop away very quickly. And that's
I agree. So here's why I'm saying
undertaking as dramatic an idea that you have suggested could accomplish much. But again, I don't have any reluctance to using a new constitutional convention, if you will, to re-examine where our Constitution has evolved to and how we need to revive a more dispersed and federalist system where much more decision-making is at the state and local level.
Sure, let me ask you this question. Currently, we know we're headed towards rack and ruin, and they're trying to get a new VAT and a new carbon tax, which if we think the income tax is bad, wow, get ready. We're going the same way Europe's going. I mean, how bad a situation do you think we're in? Ron Paul said we're under the control of authoritarian psychopaths that have already gone off the cliff. I agree. So what do we do? That's why I'm saying people are going to move towards secession. The media is going to demonize it. Why not brand secession as really a reconstitution?
Well, I think the only reason is that secession isn't the only method of protest here. They say, why not just call a convention and rewrite the rules of the game, send them back to the state legislatures, which aren't controlled by Congress, and then have a new playbook from the current Constitution, which has been deformed and mutilated and vivisected by those in Congress and the executive branch. There you already have a method for doing exactly what you suggested. And it's in the hands of the states, because it's the state legislatures who provoke the Constitutional Convention, and then the state legislatures ratify any amendments that are proposed. And that's a way in which you could focus all the sentiments that are driving the secessionist idea into a clearly constitutionally recognized path that could revamp the government every bit as dramatically as the Constitution revamped the Articles of Confederation. But now, when you say, where are we going? I agree that this country is totally and completely bankrupt already.
Well, stay there.
$16.4 trillion national debt. We're running $1 trillion deficits every single year, as far as the eye can see.
All right, Bruce, stay there. We got to go to break real quick. Bruce Fein is our guest. Straight ahead. Yeah, there's a revolution happening. In hundreds of newspapers are announcing that foreign banks have seized the United States and Europe. On CNBC, they call us slaves to the New World Order, slaves to world government. I've played that clip probably 100 times. It's all linked in an article that we've put together. And I'm glad that Ron Paul is coming out saying we're going under global government. They're saying NATO and the UN runs our military. Congress is being told that. Obama has served as the head of the United Nations Security Council, violating Article 1, Section 9. This is all being done by these lawyers who know exactly what they're doing, setting these precedents and just normalizing tyranny. And Bruce Fein has written a new book that is a bestseller, and it's Empire Before the Fall. And then we need to make that book #1 out there. It's available all over the place, but American Empire Before the Fall, only $9 up on Amazon.com. Great book. And you know what? Maybe you know this is all going on. Well, what about your friends and family? They don't know. That's why you should give a gift subscription to InfoWars Magazine. 12 issues to their door. That's a good chance they're going to look at that. They're going to read that. They're going to wake up. People are ready to wake up now. But there is a general laziness and immorality. Even if people work hard, many of them are like, hey, politics is something somebody else does. I don't need to be informed. I don't need to know what's going on. I don't need to say no. The great news is they've got a poll out, Huffington Post is running it, where 56% of people plan to opt out and film the T.S.A. Good. Just get something going. And I've said the states created the federal government. It's their job to say no. And constitutional lawyer and scholar has concurred that what I've stated in my little primitive way from reading the history books, it does have real avenues and is a good way to go. But we need to attack on all fronts, ladies and gentlemen. Bruce Fein is our guest. So you started getting into where we're going if we don't turn this around. I mean, I have a Forbes article, and I went and looked it up. And it's true. It's also in the San Diego paper, Herald Tribune. They're saying, no, we're going to give you a $100,000 fine if your dog leaves poop in the backyard. We're going to put you in jail for 6 years. They're teaching kids this. Some families we had on, this is going to be a big story when it breaks. Northside Independent School, San Antonio, Bruce. They have now expelled the little girl. And we've had the Hernandez family in here, because she won't wear the RFID tracker bracelet around her neck, run by the Department of Defense, that tracks her on the school bus and when she goes home. Government laptops are watching kids at home. I mean, you saw Ron Paul's speech, or I'm guessing you did. I mean, you watch that. That's only part of how bad it is. We're under psychopathic authoritarians, or authoritarian psychopaths, to quote Ron Paul. And I was talking in the break. You said, yeah, in a few decades, the empire will fall. I get that the empire will hold together a while, but it's going to absorb us to fund itself. I mean, we're in deep trouble. We're in 1935 Germany. And I have to debate my wife every day about getting out of the country and, you know, telling her we're going to stay and go down with the ship. I want to checkmate these people. I want to get aggressive. I want to turn this around. I know I'm ranting, Bruce. You've got the floor. I mean, where is this going? What are some of your other ideas to kickstart the states saying no? I mean, what can we do? What do we do if last year the House unanimously voted to arrest T.S.A. when they break state laws and grab genitals? And the Fed said, we'll put F-16s in the air and bring down aircraft. That was in the news, a blockade like Fort Sumter. And the Senate killed it, literally groveling in fear. I mean, this is pathetic. The feds want this challenge because they're not the feds. They're an alien criminal group in sedition against my country. I want my republic back, Bruce. I'm ranting. What do you say to this?
Well, first of all, you're quite correct. If the common citizen doesn't discharge his or her duty to make certain that the Constitution is complied with by the elected officials, then ultimately everything will crumble. Because we know elected officials, those in government, have an incentive to aggrandize power because that makes them feel powerful. It makes them feel they're celebrities. It makes them feel that they are superior. And so if the common citizen is not going to be politically active, it's over. I can tell you that. It is over. A people of sheep will get a government of wolves. I want to repeat that. A people of sheep will get a government of wolves. It happens every time. So what does that mean? It means that we've got to restore, as a principle of government, that liberty is the rule. It is the rule that the individual is the center of our constitutional universe, not government, and that there must be a great and urgent cause before government tells you what to do. Liberty is the default position. Unless the government has a really good reason that it can support by empirical evidence or experience, they need to let you alone. The right to be left alone is the most cherished right among civilized people. And that has to be the working principle of our government. And it's been lost over the hundreds of years. And you tried to recite the litany of intrusions, maybe you forgot. How about surveillance drones? And how about putting things in your computer so your picture is displayed with the government every time you get on and visit the Internet or Internet Explorer? The other thing is the money issue that you pointed out. You simply cannot have a system that has $16.4 trillion in national debt, which is about $50,000 for every man, woman, and child in the country. and running trillion-dollar deficits year after year, and to sustain itself, just like no family could avoid bankruptcy if they're spending $1 million a year, with income like $100,000. It is not sustainable. And we need an amendment to the Constitution that says the federal government cannot borrow money except in times of war, something Thomas Jefferson proposed over 2 centuries ago. But, Alex, the only way you can insist on government frugality is prevent them from borrowing, because their incentive is to saddle posterity with all the payback of what they want to spend now. So that's why the borrowing is up to $16 trillion. That will be 17 or 18 trillion probably by New Year's. And these things must be insisted upon by an active and vigilant.
Exactly. Notice how it's accelerating.
It's not going to happen by spontaneous combustion.
I'm sorry, I'm just saying it's all accelerating. What are some of your ideas to put the brakes on it? What do you think Ron Paul should be doing right now as one of his chief advisors?
Well, I think that using the Campaign for Liberty and really just creating an educated public that will use their ballots to vote out of office those members who continue to vote to increase the federal budget, to increase the spending, to the global military in meddling in every single corner of the earth for people whom we have no moral or legal obligation to defend at a staggering cost of over $1 trillion a year. And when they're ousted from office, that will send a message that the members will pay attention to.
Yes, sir.
And it's got to be a group that stands together as tightly as the National Rifle Association. If you don't vote to cut the spending and to cut the taxes and to end the permanent warfare, you're out of office. And that is what the members will pay attention to. And anything else is simply nothing but hot air. And the voters have got to be so consistent, and they've got to be very, very alert to what their members doing so that they can't escape the accountability that the Constitution intended.
And Bruce Fein, you just said it right there. I've boiled it down to my own, simple statement. But the guns are the way to victory. The Second Amendment is the key. Not using the guns, but the example of how government on this one issue has been reversed. There's been a few others in the recent past, just politically people exposing abortion. There's less of it. It's becoming more unpopular because of education. Because authoritarian systems have big trouble when the population becomes informed. As Thomas Jefferson said, educate the public in basic liberty and freedom, and tyranny will vanish like phantoms at dawn, to paraphrase him. But with the guns, we are beating them at the state, county, federal level. Liberals are becoming undomesticated at record numbers buying guns. It's a culture thing, and we have to create and push that culture of liberty and independence. The problem is we're winning on the guns. We're losing when it comes to other dependency. What do you do as the illegals become citizens or vote fraudulently, or as disenfranchised people go on welfare multi-generationally? We're passing that Rubicon now, where there are going to be more dependents than producers, and where in the pure democracy they can vote that the other 49% be their slaves. We've now passed that point to a great extent where the Californias and New Yorks can band together and make us their slaves and put shackles on us. So what do we do?
Well, the disadvantage of that position, Alex, and even the people who are dependent, they know and they feel that they are, even if they don't express it, they're undeserving. And that what we need to do, and because this is true of every human being, even if they're temporarily dependent, there is a thrill, there is a dignity that comes from hard work and from earning your own keep. And that's true of everybody, even those who are dependent. If you have an opportunity to say, no, we know that you have the talent and ability to work, here's the opportunity, learn, use your talents and genius and ambition to move forward, they would prefer that to dependency. They get taught in some way by a very effete liberal culture to think, oh, well, you're dependent because the system's so unfair and you were born into a situation and your genes don't enable you to do things, something that's very demeaning. And that's why we should never lose hope, even with those vast numbers that you point out that are dependent, because ultimately everyone really is more proud. They're more fulfilled. They have greater self-esteem if they're making it on their own. And that will always be the case so long as the heart beats and the head cerebrates.
Wow, you just told a big truth there, because I've been in the committee hearings, I have video of it in my film Endgame, where the Democrats actually got up and said, we've got to put all these minority kids on psychotropic drugs, and we've got to take them from their parents because they come from bad gene pools. That's actually a quote. And when you really study liberals, these people are not liberals. They all come out of the Margaret Sanger, Rockefeller eugenics system. And Bruce, I think you just showed again your incredible knowledge. Comment on that in closing. And then one other point. We've seen the FCC, thanks to you and others leading it, moving away from censorship, getting rid of the fairness doctrine when you were there. So it's not impossible to go in the other direction if we just know what the other direction is.
Well, that's right. And right now, I'd say the so-called progressive or liberals, it's intellectual vacuousness, and that's why we shouldn't be disheartened, because we actually have substance that corresponds to real human nature, not artificial human nature. And also, Alex, their trajectories, their rises and falls and cycles, in any nation, and we should never think that things are static, that they can't change. Otherwise, we give up hope. And to some degree, we have to be patient that changes don't occur overnight, especially with regard to culture. But we have to have the strength and the commitment that even if it doesn't happen to our lifetimes, we set the seeds. We plant the seeds in the foundation for those who stand on our shoulders, maybe to clasp the crown and the victory. And that's as long as we are intellectually and morally solid, ultimately we will prevail, because human nature can't be changed and brainwashed, even if the liberals think it can.
Well, sure. Look at Ron Paul. 16 years ago, no co-sponsors. Now, passes in the Fed. After he's gone, those ideas are still there. Look at my show. 17 years ago, access television. Today, 3 million people a day conservatively. And yes, we're gaining momentum. And I want people to have hope, but here's the problem. The social engineers, I've read countless books they've written, they know we're backlashing. They're using our money to war game and do nothing but try to stop us from the natural flow, switching back to reality. And they call it the final revolution, as you know. They call it, their collectivist utopia system. And I just want folks to know we're in for a very dangerous ride.
Well, it is, and nothing's accomplished without some difficulty, Alex. If it wasn't difficult, it had been done 10 years ago. So what you pointed out is certainly accurate, and we can expect that the opponents will throw money and propaganda and everything else, because they know we are attacking, their power center, which is this myth of liberalism, and everyone's a product of their environment, and you just throw money at everybody, and nobody really made their own deal. No one has succeeded on their own, and that's why they're so fearful. And we see it regularly in the U.S. Supreme Court. With regard to the hearings on affirmative action, the special preferences are given based upon race. They're frightened of that because they underscore how much liberty and individual liberty is going to defeat their big government kind of eugenics program in an odd way.
Absolutely. It's incredible when these liberals say blacks and Hispanics come from bad gene pools. That's why we have to take their kids and have to dumb them down. I mean, it's just totally evil and totally dismissive and disgusting. Bruce Fein, thank you for the time, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. There goes Bruce Fein, amazing individual. You got to watch that in Endgame. But there's a bunch of clips where they go, well, they come from bad gene pools. That's why we take them from their parents and put them on drugs. Shifting gears now, Paul Watson joins us via video. Skype. He's on with us for this segment, the next, and then the one after that. And then Dr. Wallach's going to be in here in studio. But Watson, wow. I want to say great job to you and that particular activist you interviewed, remind me of her name, that said, hey, we did opt out 3 years ago. Now let's film the T.S.A. You pushed me to get this out. Our listeners picked up on it. It's really gaining steam. So, Paul Watson, give us an update on what's happening with opt-out week and film the T.S.A. before they expand their operations everywhere, which they're now trying to do. Tell us what's happening, Paul Watson.
Well, yeah, it's basically been getting quite a bit of press attention over the last few days, including CBS News, where one individual named Christopher Key spoke about his plans to opt out, and I'm actually in contact with him as well, so I think he's got video from the airport he went through. As you mentioned, Ashley Jessica, who's helping us organise it, is there in Buffalo, I believe it is, with Dan Dix of Press for Truth. There are We Are Change groups involved in it and several other groups, so I'm looking forward over the next few days to get some video, which will feature on the website, and it's infowars.com/opt-out for all the information.
Paul, continue with the news you've got coming in. I noticed the Huffington Post says 56% plan to opt out and film the Hamburglers.
Well, yeah, that was a poll conducted by Christopher Elliott, who is a consumer advocate. He's on board with the campaign as well. He's been promoting it. And basically, the latest news about the TSA is Bloomberg Business Week did an investigation, and it turns out TSA security procedures are actually killing Americans in far greater numbers than terrorists could ever dream of, because they did a study and they found out that the number of Americans who are now using the highway as a result of refusing to fly, specifically because of these invasive procedures, are dying in car accidents, obviously at a rate of 242 fatalities per month. So literally every 4 or 5 months we've got, or 6 months, we got deaths on the scale.
Paul, stay there, stay there. The article's TSA security procedures are killing Americans. I already knew this because I've talked to bus companies and others. That's why you see triple the buses on the road, and they've asked their customers, they go, I'm not going to let them grab my family's genitals, but I've got to go see family. By the way, I've got to announce for TV viewers, not radio listeners, ladies, Paul Watson is married. And I'm serious. We get dozens of phone calls, hundreds of emails, comments everywhere, women trying to find Paul Watson because he looks like one of the stars of Twilight, I guess, and that's so trendy. Paul, you're working too hard for Infowars.com, man. You look great. I mean, you know, obviously the ladies like you, but you do look like a vampire. Are you hanging out with Nosferatu over there too much?
No, the problem is my lips are actually this colour, believe it or not. I don't wear lipstick. So if I put the contrast too low, then I look pale and ill. So this is the real me that you're seeing now. No lipstick.
Hey, I'm afraid to lose you to Hollywood, man. You can be the new vampire star.
Well, it's either that or look deathly ill and pale. So. All
right, you're awesome. Oh, boy, I tell you, Paul and his brother do a great job. What is it, 10 years now you've worked with me, Paul?
Almost to the month, yeah, 10 years.
Paul's also tall, guys. So, I mean, he really could play a vampire quite nicely. All right, I'm going to stop. I can play a fat guy nicely. I'm sorry. You're awesome. I'm joking. I've lost a lot of weight. Watson, you can say, at least I don't look like Mr. Potato Head Jones. Seriously, getting back to what I was saying, and your wife's also a wonderful person, expanding on this National Opt-Out Day. Let's get into the serious facets of this because it is exciting that this is catching on, Paul. And you were talking about TSA security procedures are killing Americans. Bloomberg is reporting what we've already noticed, and travel groups on CNN admit $40 billion a year or more is lost. People just won't let a weird perv stick their hands down their pants. But hey, the TSA says they're coming to your street, so it doesn't matter.
Well, that's the thing, and this is Cornell University that's done this study, 242 driving fatalities per month because people are refusing to fly because of the TSA's policies. But the thing that annoys me, Alex, every time I post something about this opt-out campaign is people respond, a significant minority of people respond by saying, let's just boycott the airlines, which is all very good because it requires them to do little other than sit on their backsides and do nothing. But the point is that wouldn't work. Most of the polls, and our own poll, say that most Americans actually like the TSA. It's only a minority that are up in arms about them, as is the case with any civil rights issue. So that's not going to have an impact. What is going to have an impact, because it's already proven so, is slowing down the security lines at airports by opting out of the body scan and all the other ridiculous procedures. Because that's the very reason why the TSA was forced to mothball and put into storage 91 X-ray radiation scanners. They took them out of the busiest airports in the country, had to put them into storage because people were opting out of them. They were taking too long to operate. And that's a perfect illustration of how this kind of action can have a direct effect. And then there's the fact that people say, oh, I'm just going to take the highway. well, there's TSA on the highway. You know, I'm just going to take the train. There's TSA in the subway stations and the train stations. You know, mobility is an essential part of freedom. You can't just keep giving up your rights and scaling your own behavior and activity back and back and back until you just say, well, I just won't leave my own house and then I'll be free and safe. You know, what's the point in having freedom inside a cage? You've got to get out there and exercise the freedoms. That's what they're all about. If you don't exercise them out in the public arena, they're completely worthless. So
you've got to get out of the coffin and out there exercising the freedoms. Count Watson, tell us more. I'm sorry. I'm going to quit now. I'm trying to make the guys laugh. Watson, I'm joking. We're all jealous. We're not as good looking as you are. This is not comedy radio, just such heavy issues. Watson is our top writer and an absolute genius. And the star of Twilight coming out this weekend. All right, stay there. We're going to come right back with Watson. Seriously, though, I agree with you. Folks, it's now time. Great job getting involved. Great job taking action. And I am Count Fruit Loop, Alex Jones. We'll be right back from Planet Pop-Tart. Stay with us. All right, coming up at the start of the next segment, I'm going to play a short piece by Jakari Jackson of the F1 thing over the weekend with troops out there basically running checkpoints. And then we're going to have Dr. Wallach in studio with us. We may even go into overdrive for a full hour if he can do it coming up. He's also going to be on the nightly news and a lot more. But Paul Watson, I was joking around with him a minute ago. You know, this is really, really heavy subjects, but it is exciting to see people getting involved and saying no. What about the reports where the TSA is trying to cover up their badges or wearing their little, they're not even sworn officer badges upside down? What's your take on that, Watson?
Well, that came out from a journalist, a syndicated columnist who syndicated in over 100 newspapers, Amy Alcon. And she was basically groped on her private parts again. She's repeatedly groped. And she was just trying to find out the TSA agent's name, her first name. She knew her surname. And the badge was upside down, so it was illegible. She then complained to the supervisor trying to get this agent's name who groped her. And she threatened her with arrest, the supervisor, simply for asking for their identity, which, of course, is completely illegal. So there's basically an attempt to stop people complaining. They want to get through their obedience training. Anyone who does complain is subject to punishment. There was a guy who got smacked in the testicles for complaining. They've stolen money, iPads off people for complaining. And basically, the TSA started out with 15,000 agents. Now it's got 65,000 agents. They're expanding outside the airport. They're on the highways. They're at political events, music concerts, even prom nights at school. So it's just getting out of control. And if we don't stand up to it now, who knows where we're going to be in 5 years' time? And saying, oh, let's boycott the airlines, just not going to work. You know, the tourism industry in America has already lost billions of dollars since 9/11 because of these ridiculous security procedures. And they don't care. They're just going to continue on with them until you actually make it difficult for them to carry out these grope downs and body scanners. So that's what we've been doing. We've had some level of success. They've mothballed some of the scanners. And now we're taking it to the next level with this opt-out campaign. And it's Infowars.com/opt-out. And you don't even have to be flying to take part in it. You can hand out the flyers, which you can print out from the website, and you can hand them out to other travelers to make them aware of the body scanners, because a lot of people don't even know in America you've got the right to opt out to them.
Exactly. We've got to resist. This is a key fight. You mentioned Dan Dix, great activist filmmaker. He's on the way to a local airport in his area. Real fast, we got about a minute and a half here, Dan. People can join. What airport are you going to?
We're on our way to the Buffalo airport right now. We're just made a quick little pit stop off the side of the road here and should be there probably in the next half hour. So I don't know if anybody's in the Buffalo area. If you want to come down and help us, we got a big stack of flyers. We got a couple cameras, and we're ready to do this and expose the tyranny of the TSA. So we should be there in about a half an hour at the Buffalo airport. If anybody wants to come on down and meet up with us and take part in the campaign, that would be great.
Absolutely. Protesting the TSA. That's really what this is turning into, and it's getting really big, thanks to Paul Watson. Thank you so much, Dan. We'll get you on once you have the video to give us reports in the next few days. We're going to have Watson back each day with updates. Paul, again, it was your idea to go to me to get us to promote this, but I know you've had her on. I forget her name. Who was the lady that spurred you to push this?
It was Ashley Jessica, and she's there with Dan now at Buffalo Airport.
Oh, great. Okay, great. So fantastic. And again, did my graphics team ever do that where they made the graphic with quotes out of the newspapers about cancer clusters with the scanners? Did we ever get that done?
No, we need to get that done.
Tell you what, if you or whoever will send over some of those quotes to the graphics team, because I'm saying it on the radio and everybody's listening, we'll also add that to the page. It's got some other great graphics on it as well. But fabulous job, Watson. We'll continue to get updates from you as this unfolds and everybody else. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.
All right, there goes Paul Watson. We'll be right back with a special guest in studio. Stay with us. Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central, we are here live. And then, of course, I come back Sundays 4 to 6 with the Sunday broadcast Central Time. We have the weeknight TV show, 7 o'clock, Central InfoWars Nightly News. All of it funded and supported by viewers and listeners out there like you, supporting our sponsors and more. Don't forget, it's a great Christmas gift to give a gravity-fed filter to folks to cut out all those different toxins and poisons. And the best out there that I use is the ProPure system. It's available with 10% off, the lowest price anywhere, at InfoWarsStore.com with the promo code WATER. All right, continuing, we're going to play a little piece here, and we'll play a few more throughout the hour. We've got special reports here on countries that have seceded, and states could secede here in the United States. And our very own David Ortiz went out on the streets and talked to Austinites about that. That's coming up at the bottom of the hour. It's about a 4-minute report. Also, we're going to overdrive into the next hour with Dr. Joel Wallach, who's here in studio with us. And we also are going to play a piece right now by our very own Jakari Jackson. He and Marcos Morales went out to F1 outside Austin, where the Bilderberg Group basically comes to town. This is the king sport. They're mainly hedge fund hyenas and derivative scammers. Most of them should be in jail, like Bernie Madoff, whose accountant blew his head off over the weekend. Sure, he'll now tell no tales. Dead men tell no tales. His son committed suicide, too. If you believe that, you believe the Easter Bunny actually puts little eggs out on Easter every year for you and your children. Little chocolate candy eggs as well. Little chocolate bunnies are real. Maybe they come to life and hop around outside at night. It's as real as the Twilight TV show or movie that's coming out. So again, ladies and gentlemen, the state guard, but still assigned to the Army, under the governor, out there with their U.S. Army outfits, were out there directing traffic, checking in cars, doing this and that. And the state guards are great people. Okay, the military is great people on average. But why did Governor Perry, who was photographed, you can go to the F1 site and show this, why did Rick Perry out there with all these globalists and Ecclestone who gets all this taxpayer money? In fact, I IM'd you guys an article, and I don't see my IM stack today. It's actually in the IMs. Will you pull it? The Bloomberg headline about hundreds of millions go to build F1, but teachers are fired. That's why I'm so upset about this, because taxpayers pay for this so this guy can give a $3 billion gift to his daughter this year. Oh, here's a $3 billion. I'm getting old. I want to get out of, taxes. Here's $3 billion, baby. If it was $3 billion from something he actually did, that'd be great. But no, it's everyone financing his courses all over the world. It's there's the governor with Ecclestone. Very, very disgusting from the official F1 site. All basically taxpayer funded one way or another. Just disgusting, Rick Perry. You make me want to throw up. Anyways, that's enough of that. Let's go to this Jakari Jackson piece. The audio for the radio listeners, video for people watching at prisonplanet.tv. And here it is.
We're out here at the Formula One racetrack right outside of Austin, Texas. It is deafening loud. We have helicopters flying overhead. As you can hear, I believe they're in the practice runs behind me. You can also see behind me some military personnel, and we're just curious as to why they're out here directing traffic. So let's go see if we can get a word. Sir, what are you doing out here today?
We're out here just supporting the event. The coordinators for the event asked if we would be out here, be available to support in this, as far as traffic control and things of that nature. So we're just out here supporting the event.
So we're just here to support the Travis County Police Department.
We're out here in support of the local civilian authorities. Any large public event like this, there's always a public safety concern, and we're out here much like the local law enforcement is, just to make sure everybody has a good, safe time, and just to help out our friends.
You're there to acclimate people, buddy.
What branch of the military are you with, sir?
Texas Army National Guard.
We're the Texas Army National Guard.
And what branch of the military are you with?
Army National Guard.
And have you ever heard of posse comitatus?
No, sir.
And have you ever heard of posse comitatus?
I have.
Okay. Briefly, can you explain to us what that is, sir?
I'm afraid I'm not good enough with the law to be able to do that.
All right. Are you doing anything besides directing traffic, sir?
No, we're just assisting under the civil authorities.
And as civil authorities you're referring to, what?
Immediately it's under the governor, but it's we're assisting Travis County, then the local law enforcement with them.
Okay. All right, thank you for your time, sir. Now, the race has officially begun. We've had to move even farther out into the parking lot to avoid the noise. Now, the soldiers we spoke with weren't too familiar with posse comitatus, which separates police and military, but the soldier did point out there is a chain of command, but ultimately they're here under the direction of Governor Rick Perry. I'm Jakari Jackson for the InfoWars Nightly News.
All right, and again, I happened to be driving outside Austin and went up on a Mixmaster this weekend on Saturday when they were doing qualifying runs, and there were at least 8 helicopters over the track, and that's where the elitists go up and they watch. The new Roman bleachers are the helicopters swarming around, and they got temporary helipads all over Austin, and in neighborhoods at night, now I learned till 4 a.m., they were landing, you know, with getting their women delivered, everything else, and just meow, 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 with all this taxpayer money they've gotten and bailout money and their giant yachts and literally guys getting out of limos with like 9 women behind them. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is the new empires built on destroying our country, and I got to pay for it, and you got to pay for it. If you live in Texas, absolutely amazing how much taxpayer money went to this. It's like building these billion-dollar stadiums, and you can go to the F1 website and see all the photos of it. So shifting gears out of that now, we are joined for the rest of this hour and some of the next hour. He's here in town putting on an event tonight and tomorrow night, and later we'll be able to give you the address of that on air and tell people about where that is going to be tonight. Here in Austin, Texas. Dr. Joel Wallach is no stranger to this show. You've heard him on the radio. You've seen him via Skype. The first time I've met him in person, been listening to his material for about 16 years. And you saw Aaron Dykes lose 98 pounds on stuff that's not even sold as weight loss beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst Plus, things like that. OsteoFX, the special proprietary EFAs that Dr. Wallach developed, the hundreds of products available at InfoWars website, InfoWarsHealth.com or InfoWarsTeam.com. If you want to sign up and be a distributor and get discounts and free shipping, it's InfoWarsTeam.com, or just to see the full catalog, InfoWarsHealth.com. But I'm not going to go into a big pitch for the discounted longevity products that are InfoWarsHealth.com today. I want to talk about Dr. Wallach here on air with him before we get into why are we the #1 obese nation in the world. 30% is diabetics right now, going to 50% in the next 10 years. That's official numbers. Doctors kill or injure 15 million Americans a year. We're going to go through all these points with him, but I first wanted to get him to talk about himself and talk about, again, recapping how you grew up, being a veterinarian, then a doctor, what you discovered, what you did for the government, and then all the times you've sued the Food and Drug Administration and won. So many of the landmark cases that have even allowed any supplementation, you were there even before you had longevity fighting for. So you're quite a tiger because it's a blueprint for victory. So we're going to break in about 4 or 5 minutes. Dr. Wallach, tell us about yourself.
First of all, Alex, thank you so much for your hospitality. Really appreciate being here with you. But my background is a little bit different. Grew up on a farm in Missouri, West St. Louis County, small Angus farm, and went to ag school at the University of Missouri, and my major is in animal husbandry and nutrition. Went to veterinary school and got into veterinary school halfway through ag school, so I was a graduate student after I graduated ag school. Wrote the first paper on a mass die-off in America from pollution. Got that published, and that began to direct the rest of my career. Graduated veterinary school, went to Africa for 2 years in Marlin Perkins, the White Rhino Conservation Project. Caught 200 of them, brought them back. So if you see a white rhino in a wild animal park or a zoo, it's either one that I caught or offspring. And while I was in Africa, Marlin got a grant from the National Institutes of Health to study pollution in zoo animals and people who lived in close proximity to the zoos. It was my job as a pathologist, and I'd already become a published pathologist, to do autopsies on the zoo animals and people who lived in close proximity to the zoo and find out what part pollution played in disease. And to make a long story short, after 12 years, I had done 20,000 autopsies, some 17,500 on over 454 species of zoo animals and 3,000 humans. And the 1,200-page book that came out of that is in the Smithsonian Institute as a national treasure. And the bottom line of that 12-year study, Alex, was a surprise because we were looking for pollution. But what it said was every animal and every human being who dies of natural causes dies of a nutritional deficiency disease. And that was a powerhouse. And the last project I did for that program, I was at the Brookfield Zoo and the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago, and then I went to the Yerkes Primate Center in Atlanta, where I found the first case of non-human cystic fibrosis and found out what caused it. And they fired me because I found out what caused cystic fibrosis because it was different than their theory. Their theory was it's genetic. This is back in 1978.
And again, you can be predisposed genetically that if you have these deficiencies, it triggers worse, correct? But then now they're just saying, no, everything's genetic. They're now saying inner city kids need to be locked up or put on drugs because they have bad genetics. Just blanket, no studies, no proof, you're just scum. But that's liberal.
Well, we can fix those kids. I can take them if they've never spoken in 11 years. In 6 weeks' time, they're speaking. I don't care if they're violent and crazy and can't sit still 30 seconds. And
they got to get off the red dye number 5 and corn syrup and actually not eat white bread all day?
Well, yeah, exactly. And they have to take the Alex pack on top of that.
You're an extremist.
That's what I've been told.
The kids are acting up because they're evil, not because they're eating Snickers all day and bouncing off the walls.
Well, they're actually deficient in nutrients, and then you take a lot of carbohydrates and sugars, which aggravates that.
I disagree. They should eat nothing but they should eat nothing but candy bars all day in McDonald's. You are a conspiracy theorist. McDonald's has everything you need in it, and it's the reason we're so healthy. I'm joking. We're going to come back and talk about your victories over the FDA, and then we'll get into some of the top medical stories out there straight ahead. We are back live with Dr. Joel Wallach in studio. You can find out about all of his incredible research and information at InfoWarsHealth.com. We also carry his excellent books at InfoWarsStore.com. And your purchases not only inform yourself and your family and will obviously make you healthier, but they also fund our operation. So I want to thank all the folks that have joined InfoWarsTeam.com. Texas taxpayers finance Formula One auto races as schools dismiss teachers. There's Bloomberg. There's another one. Texas billionaires set bet on Austin F1 race backed by the state. I mean, that's what I'm talking about, why I'm getting so angry. I'm really sick of it. Going back to Dr. Wallach, this is a short segment, long segment coming up. Briefly, well, first off, if people are watching you at prisonplanet.tv, I've seen you in a lot of speeches and things, and I tell you look like you're about 55. Here in person, I got to say, because I'm looking right at him, if we can put a camera on him, people say I look a lot older, than I do for my age. I mean, I'm telling you, buddy, you look maximum 55, 60 years old. And again, on the camera, you look a little older, you may be 60. In person, you look, I mean, you could pass for somebody who was 50 years old. Unbelievable. And I mean, I'm looking at this, and you have discovered that it's the essential 90 for life. Amazing. But briefly, and we're going to get into that coming up and some of the things that this can, really help people with, or from your research, reverse. And we've seen it with countless folks. Ted Anderson's knee, Ted Anderson's dad with Alzheimer's. I mean, when I go do events now, people just flood up saying, it's incredible. I was in a wheelchair. And the issue is the medical establishment knows all this stuff, but doesn't want people to know it. But I'm already taking the whole segment up here. Talk about your battles with the FDA and your victories.
Well, during that 12-year study I did for the NIH, that came out with that book, what it found was that we could prevent birth defects like neurotube defects by supplementing with folic acid, but you couldn't say that. You can only say by eating foods rich in folic acid you could prevent the neurotube defects. So I had to sue them in federal court, and it prevailed. I also was able to see that you could prevent the coronary thrombosis, thrombotic stroke, pulmonary embolism by supplementing with omega-3 essential fatty acids. Before I sued them in federal court, you couldn't say that. You can only say...
And I looked this up. Decades ago, you did all this and said this. Now it's mainline science.
Yes.
Sorry, I mean, you're a trailblazer.
Well, yes, you could say that. And, of course, I didn't do that to make money off it because it was generic, so everybody gets to use the information. So it was really to save America.
Well, I mean, here's the example, vitamin E. They say that's the most powerful, thing for... Well, also for women to get pregnant. They don't tell you that.
Well, for when you have somebody who's infertile, and you can certainly, with the Alex Pack, I mean, you can tell people honestly that the Alex Pack will get more women pregnant than Solomon.
I got to say, well, I'm not going to get into any stories here, but that's the feedback we've been getting is 45, 50-year-old women are getting pregnant.
Yes.
So look out, folks.
Yeah, I've had women who are in their 60s going through menopause, and I warn them, be careful because you get pregnant here, and certainly they've gotten pregnant, healthy babies.
Explain that to people.
Well, it takes nutrition for things to work, and when you don't have nutrition, it's just like pulling the plug on a lamp and expecting it to turn on. And you put the plug back in, turn on the light, it comes on. Well, the same thing with cycling, ovulation, making sperm. If you take something like cholesterol-lowering drugs, statin drugs, you get on a cholesterol-restricted diet, you can't make testosterone, so there's nobody home anymore. Okay, so nothing works without nutrition.
I was about to say, since I've been on this about a year, and I've still got weight to go, folks. I was really big, but I've lost upwards of 40 pounds.
Look great.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm really, my head's just giant and round, but I ought to do a thing where I take the shirt off. It really is amazing what's happened. But I've noticed my muscles have gotten bigger without doing weights. I've lost fat, but I've also gotten a lot more aggressive. And I do want to say, you know, that my testosterone's gone up.
Yeah, you don't need any of those creams.
No, but I guess it just does that.
Yes, well, it's the raw material to make testosterone. A guy your size should be eating 4 to 6 eggs a day. I try to get in 4, 6, 8 eggs a day. Have 4 eggs for breakfast with a steak and all my supplements. You know, we're done in the evening. We go to one of these places that serve breakfasts all day, or all 24 hours. Have 4 poached eggs and a steak and the supplements. So I do that twice a day.
And they bought you guys sandwiches, but I noticed you took the wheat off and just ate the turkey.
Yes, I don't eat wheat because of the gluten, and that helps keep the weight off. But also, it improves the absorption of nutrients through your intestines. Even if you don't think you're gluten intolerant, as many as 80% of Americans are gluten intolerant right now, Alex. And whether it's due to the GMO stuff in the grains that's made this happen, 50 years ago, maybe 5% of Americans were gluten intolerant. Now, in some communities, as high as 80%.
Oh, there's all these new allergies every day.
Yes.
What's behind the allergies? We're going to come back from break, but just give us an idea.
Okay, restricting salt. You can't make stomach acid. You can't make proteins break down into amino acids. You're going to be allergic to anything with protein in it if you don't have salt. You must salt your food.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. Dr. Joel Wallach is our guest, and we're going to come back, give you his bio, and then just run through a laundry list of things they don't want you to know. This information could literally save your life, and I'm so proud to be affiliated with Longevity and be selling it and promoting it at InfoWarsHealth.com. Dr. Joel Wallach is our guest, and we're going to have him into the next hour, and we'll open the phones up for everybody. And we've got so many things we want to cover. I'm actually trying to find a spoon here. I've got my Pollen Burst Plus that I actually take in the afternoon now, rather than coffee. And I found that sometimes coffee gives me that speed freak feeling, and then I just get a headache. I do not have that problem with Pollen Burst Plus. And, of course, my face is also on the product because, you know, I told them I wanted to endorse Pollen Burst. And they said, well, listen, a couple of months we've actually got one with berry-flavored currant, added antioxidants coming out. Do you want to endorse that one? So I was the first person to get them, you know, in little bags. Looked like it was drugs or something. Didn't even have the packaging on it. And I said, yeah, I like this even more than the regular Pollen Burst that's citrus-flavored. This is berry-flavored. Tastes like fruit punch. You know, I'm like a kid. I love it. And it's got the bee pollen in it. It's got the B vitamins. It's got a bunch of other stuff. And it's got the caffeine from green tea. And it doesn't even have that much caffeine in it, but I just can't take energy drinks. This one I love. And I normally take it at about 1:30. So I'm sitting here. Dr. Joel Wallach's here. And it's product placement all the way, baby. But this is what I drink in here every day. I have to hide it from the crew. They're all signed up for their own, but it literally disappears. There's an area in the cupboard that says Alex's stuff, and it's pilfered. There's thieves. They're not thieves in a bad way, but I guess we're all like little monkeys or something. I'm kind of that way, too. Sometimes I'm in the refrigerator, see something I want at night, and I go, oh, I'll find who the person is later and pay them back, and I steal it, too. I guess we're all guilty of some of that. I'm like a little monkey going in the refrigerator. But here it is, ladies and gentlemen, Pollen Burst Plus, and coffee in the morning, because I love the way it smells, and it's a ritual. My wife has just gone to Pollen Burst, period. And, you know, Rebound's good as well, but her favorite is Pollen Burst. It's my favorite. Plus, it's a sponsor and endorses us, but I endorse them. That's all available at InfoWarsHealth.com. And when you go to InfoWarsHealth.com, you can sign up for auto ship and then get free shipping. You can also sign up and become a distributor and get discounts there as well. And my whole family is now involved in this, promoting it. My dad's a dentist. And my dad, about a year and a half ago when I first started promoting this, he's like, oh, yeah, I know vitamins are good, yeah. Then he saw the effects on family. He saw the effects on my mother, who's a triathlete, who couldn't, I mean, she actually got higher speeds than she had 10 years ago. She actually was unable to lose this weight, even though she'd go out and brutally work out, you know, run 10 miles, lost weight. And my mother's ready to endorse it. I just haven't gotten over there to do it yet. Again, I say I'm not going to do an infomercial. We're here to talk about news. I just start doing it. Dr. Joel Wallach's here. I'll do the whole next hour to even let him talk. The point is InfoWarsHealth.com. Let me give you a little bit more information here. You can call a toll-free number, 877-551-1301. If you'd like to call and talk to the InfoWars phone team, people that sign up at InfoWarsTeam.com, if they become distributors and become successful and we vet them and stuff, we actually hire people from the team to actually sit there and take the calls and work for us. So that is InfoWarriors there that in the last few years signed up with us. 877-551-1301, 877-551-1301. You never know who will answer. Sometimes it's doctors and pharmacists. I mean, there's a lot of great people. Sometimes my dad answers. So 877-551-1301, InfoWarsTeam.com to be part of the team and get discounts, or InfoWarsHealth.com. And coming up tonight, they're going to have event information. We emailed this out to everybody that's signed up at InfoWarsTeam.com. But here it is, event information, Monday, November 19th and Tuesday, November 20th, 6:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. at the Promised Land Church Gymnasium, 1504 East 51st Street, Austin, Texas, 78723. And you need to get there early, folks. They've had to do 2 events because of the amount of folks that are coming, and obviously he is going to have to go and not be here on Thanksgiving. So be sure and check that out. Promised Land Church Gymnasium, 1504 East 51st Street, Austin, Texas, 78723. Or if you have any questions, 877-551-1301. Okay. Yeah, my mic does sound a little bit low. Are you guys hearing that? So I just heard you fiddle with it, and I sounded loud. Genesis, do I sound good up there where you're at? Sound perfect. Oh, okay, fantastic. We're just in there playing with the old knobs. That's what I like to do. I've actually gone there before and just started hitting all the buttons. Actually, that's true. People think I'm joking. Anyways, going back to Dr. Wallach, I'm going to give you the floor now, sir. I've been doing my pitch here because I believe in it. I only promote things I believe in. But I said, what do you want to talk about during the break? I've got all these points I want to ask. But you said, let's talk about Obamacare. So tell us about, the same government. I mean, people have the FDA certify aspartame, all these poisons. And people say, well, it's okay, my product has aspartame. The FDA says it's okay. So now the death panels, all of it. What's your take on Obamacare?
Well, there's nothing in Obamacare that helps the patient. That's an overriding statement. There's nothing that says we'll only pay you for this treatment because this is the one that cures somebody or this is the one that works. There's none of that. The whole deal with Obamacare is finding ways to raise money to pay doctors more. That's all Obamacare. And
let them not give you treatments that work, because the insurance companies wrote it.
That's correct.
I mean, they're saying no more, we're not going to cover pre-existing. Above 65, go get a cane if you want eye surgery. They actually say this. And it's like, oh, it's liberal good. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. But you're exactly right. And basically, doctors now, for the last 6 months, and it's speeding up, they're actually putting up signs we no longer accept Medicare patients because the Medicare payments from Obamacare is going to drop anywhere from 30 to 50%, depending on where you are in your age. The older you are, the less they're going to...
Wow, that sounds good. Less money. That's a free deal from the government. Exactly. What idiots supported that, huh?
Yeah, and so the doctors are actually putting up signs that say we no longer accept Medicare patients. And there was a cover article in Newsweek magazine, I think it was August of 2011, and it said that there was a big cover article. It showed a guy laying on a gurney, and 5 surgeons are going to stick him with a knife. It showed 7 doctors approaching him in his hospital gown, and he's doing this defensive position, like, no. And basically, it's because he was the only one in the hospital with money. Everybody else is a Medicare patient. And they were all fighting each other and playing hockey and body checking each other.
My dad's friend won a lawsuit because he went in for 2 stents. They put 12 in him, and the other doctors told him it basically was going to kill him, and he won the suit against the guy, and the guy got kicked out. But the point is, these guys are pirates.
Well, yeah, they're pirates, and I call them pre-grave robbers. The cost of hospice for Medicare has gone up 70%. Big headline news couple of months ago. 70% has gone up, and that's because when somebody comes in with, say, colon cancer, has gone to the brain, they're in a coma, they got maybe a week to live with IVs, they email all their buddies, and they say, come on in, this gal here has got a 4th-stage colon cancer, it's in her brain, but she's got $300,000 between her private insurance and Medicare left. They come in, they do a double mastectomy, double hip replacement, double knee replacement, they do a hysterectomy, take her thyroid gland out, do cataract surgeries.
They give her the Darth Vader treatment.
Exactly. Then they pull the plug, call the family, say, hey, Granny Daisy took a turn for the worst, and she didn't.
And the way they sell it is, while we've got her under, we're going to fix the hips, the eyes, everything. They know full well she's dead in 3 weeks. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. They're going to black op her.
Yeah, they don't want, exactly. They don't want that money going to the grave with her. They believe it's their money, and they're going to get it from her. And that's why the cost of Medicare hospice has gone up 70%. Huge headlines. That's what I use in my presentation, because people say, that can't be right. I actually have one pharmacist who said, Wallach, you got to be exaggerating, because I oversee the pharmacies of over 200 hospices. I'm going to double check on that. He called me 2 weeks later, Alex, literally a grown man crying. He says, Doc, he says, it's worse than even you said.
I know some very wealthy people here in town, and the mother got bitten by a rattlesnake in the backyard. We have those here. And they took her, and the bill was something like $300 and something thousand for the antivenom and a 2-day stay in the hospital. And she was fine. She just went to the hospital, and I mean, just in a bed, this country, and they had insurance too. It's just totally criminal.
Well, that's why it was $300,000, because they had insurance. Insurance is the thing that's broken the back of America, because medical doctors have learned how to game the insurance policy. For instance, Alex, we know how to cure, this is not me, this is medical schools done the research. We've known for 50 years how to cure rheumatoid arthritis in 2 weeks. It's actually an infection with a bug called mycoplasma. You give an antibiotic called minocycline, like a little bait fish, minocycline. In 2 weeks' time, rheumatoid arthritis is gone. The doctor only makes $300. The pharmacy makes $1,000 for the antibiotics. If they treat you for 25 years, they make $750,000.
That's like Lyme's, too. They know the cures for that.
Well, of course. Now, Lyme's is just, it's a cousin to syphilis. You can cure syphilis in a week with penicillin. You can cure Lyme's in a week with tetracyclines. So why do they treat you for 12, 15, 20 years? Well, because there's no law saying they have to cure you when there's a cure available. And so they always opt for treating you over long periods of time rather than curing you. And so this is the difference between them and us. We actually take the things that are published in medical journals that say this bug can be killed with this antibiotic, or this cartilage can be regrown doing this. We can make you an ex-diabetic by giving you these things.
But listen, you know, a year and a half ago, I've been promoting this 2 years. I knew it was good products, but I barely promoted it because I hardly ever even plug my sponsors. I'm so busy. My main focus isn't making money, though I need to fund the operation. But Ted Anderson's dad didn't know who he was. And Ted allows me to tell this story. It's very sad. And, you know, great guy, whole 9 yards. He got him on Beyond Tangy Tangerine, OsteoFX, and essential fatty acids, and in a few months knew who he was, could go fishing. His dad was back. The rot holes in his skin healed. He went to the doctor to test the blood. They said, you got vitamin K, you're not allowed green vegetables. What are you doing? Oh, we're on this stuff. Oh, no way. This has got vitamins and minerals in it because we got you on Coumadin. And within a few months, his dad didn't know who he was again. And it's a priesthood. It's like, and I don't want to get into, well, Ted has allowed me to say it. His mother, God bless her soul, said, listen, I'm in charge, and this is what we're going to do what the doctor says. I mean, that's incredible.
Well, this happens all the time, especially with people who are a little older, people over age 60, because they've grown up with doctors being the demigods, right? And whatever the doctor says they're going to do, and they say, well, that's interesting, but, you know, I got my diabetes under control, I got my high blood pressure under control. So we help people of that age who want help, Alex, but also what we want to do is get kids going before they're conceived. We got to talk to young girls before they're old enough to have their own families, get them taking these nutrients so they'll never have a baby born with Down syndrome or cerebral palsy or cleft palate or muscular dystrophy, cystic fibrosis. We can prevent all that. We've done it in animals. I just use those same principles in humans. It works. I've been doing it for 35 years. Publish it, and I'm still outside of jail, so I can't be saying something wrong for 35 years. And doctors will not do this. It took 1,000 years to change the concept of spontaneous generation before von Leeuwenhoek, the microscope guy, and Pasteur, the bacteria guy,
discovered microbes.
Exactly.
And explain spontaneous generation. I actually had somebody work for me one time. I go, there's always flies in the office. He was leaving the bathroom window open. And he said, no, the flies are coming out of the trash can. And I said, no, they're not spontaneously generating. The Greeks, they thought maggots, just came out of nowhere out of meat.
Exactly. And that because they didn't know about genetics, and they didn't know about eggs, and they didn't know about flies laying eggs and things like that. And so that was a thing that went on for 2,000 years. Spontaneous generation was the theory of the land when it came to flies and maggots appearing.
They thought little fish just appeared in streams.
Exactly. They didn't know about the egg thing. And so it took von Leeuwenhoek, eyeglass maker from Switzerland. I guess he was Dutch. He was from Holland. And he came up, put two eyeglass lenses together in a tube, and it magnified things so you could actually see sperm moving. It freaked them out. They'd never seen that before. And you could see little...
It was like discovering a whole new universe.
Exactly. And
now they're discovering little things inside little things inside little things, exactly. But they don't want to tell you what microplasm is. We're just going to let you die over a long period of time.
Well, here's one on that one. There's another one. You've heard of Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, mad cow disease in people?
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's prions do not cause disease. They've taken prions from mad cows, ground them up, put them in the brains of 1,000 cows, normal cows, haven't transmitted it.
Yeah, I've seen those studies.
Yeah, they haven't transmitted it. They've tried, but they haven't transmitted it. Same way with taking out of a human brain with Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, put it into monkeys and chimpanzees, they have not transmitted it. Well, there's actually, I'm a pathologist, so I look at the brains from mad cows. I look at a disease in sheep that's called enzootic ataxia from 100 years ago. And guess what? It's the same disease. Well, I know it causes enzootic ataxia in sheep. So the first case I got from Holmes County, Ohio, for Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, or mad cow disease in people, this guy had had the disease for a year. He was in the terminal stages, and I treat him like I would a sheep with enzootic ataxia or a cow with mad cow disease, and in 2 months' time, his doctor declared him perfectly normal.
Incredible. So what did you treat him with?
The Alex Pack. Seriously.
And again, you call it the Alex Pack, the OsteoFX, the essential fatty acids, and Beyond Tangy Tangerine. Right. What was happening with Ted Anderson's dad on the Alex Pack in just 3 to 4 months?
Okay, what's happening there, Alex, is your brain requires all 90 essential nutrients. You can't get it from your food. It's impossible to get from your food. We used to get minerals from our food because we put the wood ashes, which are really minerals when you burn the wood. And the trees, the powder that's left is not ashes, it's really minerals. And you put it in the garden, you ate the okra and the sweet potatoes and the corn and the tomatoes and things. You got minerals in that fashion. Well, how many wood ashes do we put in the garden now and eat entirely out of the garden? Very few people in America do that. And so we don't get the minerals. Well, the Alex Pack has all the minerals in it that are necessary. And there actually is a vitamin. There's one vitamin that causes a disease called Korsakoff syndrome that looks exactly like Alzheimer's disease. And I am able to eliminate that disease in people usually in a week or two by giving them the Alex Pack, because it's a simple disease. You got to get them off of sugar too, because sugar makes that deficiency, that vitamin, worse. It was actually discovered in the year 1712 by a Japanese naval surgeon. We've known it for 300 years.
Now, if the degeneration's gone too far, though, so I've talked to Dr. Blaylock, and you've got that chronic inflammation from the sugar, the aspartame, the MSG. Sometimes the brain is too far gone, from damage.
That's true. There's always that position because it wants to go away. Everything wants to go away. That's why you have to take these nutrients every day. It's just like you need oxygen all day. You can't just take oxygen on Christmas.
And there's also trauma from playing football and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure, that all counts. But for the most part, what we've learned, when people have this Korsakoff syndrome, which looks like Alzheimer's disease, 95% of the time, they get so much better. They come from...
But imagine the doctor, it was dramatic. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, but you might have a stroke if you've got vitamin K. Mm-hmm. Keep taking your Coumadin, even though he's never had a stroke.
Yeah, well, he could continue taking Coumadin if his wife wants him to take Coumadin.
Why were the rot holes in the arm going away? You always see these old people with just these big bloody balls on their arms. Your arms look like a 30-year-old guy's arms. Look at that.
Too bad.
That's amazing. And you're almost 70, right?
73.
73, excuse me. Oh, it's just hard to believe. Yeah. 73. Look at that arm, folks. Zoom in on that. A 73-year-old man's arm.
It hangs out in my truck window. It's a little browner. But, nobody's going to steal an airplane with me on it, Alex.
We'll be right back. Stay with us. Dr. Joel Wallach is our guest. We'll get into the really key news straight ahead. Now, folks, we're going to go into the fourth hour with Dr. Joel Wallach, and we'll open the phones up as well. But I wanted to bring him a question because some of their brands of plant-derived minerals, and I've also seen this at Whole Foods with other companies that have copied what Dr. Wallach's done, it will say may contain trace amounts of lead, arsenic, or then it goes on and says aluminum. But then you'll notice on Beyond Tangy Tangerine, it doesn't say that. And I know I was talking to your son, Steve Wallach, they've actually gone and had some big university look at it, and they can't even find trace amounts. It's just that big companies, it was recommended years ago, because it's plant-derived. When you're eating an apple, it's going to have stuff because it's out of the dirt. They say this, but it's not like when you're vaccine injecting something in you, but that's something that the establishment has certainly been upset about, trying to say that, this is evil and horrible. But I've noticed with a lot of the high-quality sea salts, it'll have that as well. But unfortunately, it's not on the packaging now, and I was talking to Steve Wallach, even on some of the other packaging, they're going to take it off because they did the test, because you're saying you actually do. And my dad's always said this. Want very small amounts of it, bound with the other things, because somehow from the studies he's talked about, it activates things. But you've got the floor on this subject. Break down exactly what you're talking about. Okay, well, first of all vertebrates, whether you're a hummingbird or an elephant or a snake or a human, we all need 60 minerals. 60 minerals. And these minerals include things like arsenic and lead and aluminum. These are essential nutrients. But there is a bell-shaped curve for all essential nutrients. For instance, something like vitamin C, it has a bell-shaped curve that looks like Ayers Rock in Australia. It's just a flat thing forever before it comes down, where too much will do you some good. You get diarrhea if you take too much vitamin C. The same thing is true with arsenic. Arsenic, from research back to 1947, shows that you can actually eliminate the worst type of leukemia by supplementing with arsenic. Well, that's what my dad, when I was a kid, would talk about. He said that if you don't have arsenic, you'll die. Your hair will fall out. I mean, your hair's got it in it. Well, yeah, you have to have arsenic, and you notice that the EPA never says we're working towards an arsenic-free world. No, they say it has to be below a certain level, because again, that's that bell-shaped curve thing. And the optimal amounts are in parts per billion. It's a tiny, tiny little... But unfortunately, they've done the test. It's not even in that. And that's about to... So, I mean, I guess you need to add some. Well, I believe it's in there. I think they use a standard test that's not sensitive enough to find the amount. But the point is, a lot of supplement companies put that on, I guess, because the government said so or something. What about the warning? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That doesn't bother me, because we test it... we test every batch, and we make sure that it's below that parts per billion. No, but I understand. But explain what a plant-derived mineral is anyways. That's what used to be put on the crops. Well, yeah. And basically where the plant-derived minerals came from was the powder that was left in the wood stove, in the fireplace, and the fire pit. You notice I didn't call it wood ashes, because it's really not ashes. The powder that was left, that gray powder that's left when you burn logs in a fireplace or in a wood stove, it was taken out every morning and put into the garden. Well, that powder was actually the minerals that the tree had sucked up out of the ground. So where do you get yours? I know where you do, but tell us. Well, actually, there's a deposit in Utah that has, probably a 500-year supply if everybody in the world uses it correctly. This has 77 minerals in it. It's in a compost. It's in plant material. So we're able to get it certified organic every year for 35 years. It's a 3,000-foot elevation. So it's an alluvial deposit of plant material. Yes, exactly, but it's plant material. And it's covered by a 25 to 50-foot thick cap of limestones, marine limestone, because it has marine animal fossils and marine plant fossils in it. So this stuff was under the sea for thousands of years. The earth is just filled with all sorts of goodies. Yeah, exactly. So this is the basis. This is what makes the ALEC pack unique. It has these 90 essential nutrients, but of that, 2/3 of them are these plant minerals. So it's ocean silt. I mean, all that life. And hold on, we're going to come right back straight ahead with Dr. Joel Wallach, InfoWarsHealth.com. Check it out today. We're live, ladies and gentlemen, and Dr. Joel Wallach is with us. We're going to open the phones up. In the next segment, I'll give out that toll-free number for your questions or comments for Dr. Joel Wallach, host of Dead Doctors Don't Lie, who is here with us today in studio. And he's going to put on events tonight and tomorrow night in Austin, Texas. We'll give you that information out as well before he leaves us. Okay. Finishing up with the plant-derived minerals, you know, I did my research on this, and again, this package doesn't say may contain the traces, but you've got some of the pure mineral packs, you know, that say that, but I know you guys are removing that just because you don't even have to have that on there. I just guess that's been going on because some other companies do it. You guys decided to do it. But the point is, I give this to my children. The point is, my mother takes this, I take this. And it's just amazing that the power structure is so scared of this that they would try to put out rumors and things to demonize Beyond Tangy Tangerine and things like that. Because, you know, they tell you you don't need 90 vitamins and minerals. They tell you you don't. I mean, hospitals, they admit, have the most unhealthy food out there. Talk about what some of the deficiencies in vitamins and minerals causes. You were telling me during the break about aluminum.
Okay, well, aluminum is the most common mineral in the crust of the earth. That's why it's so cheap. It's used for everything. And it makes up 12% of the Earth's crust. I guarantee you that if I were to do a hair analysis of every vegan in America and every vegetarian American, if you look at their hair analysis, the mineral that's going to give the biggest spike is going to be aluminum. Okay? You cannot eat a carrot, you cannot eat a tomato. Anything that's grown in the earth is going to have more aluminum in it than any other mineral in there. And so people are insane if they're afraid of aluminum. Because it's everywhere.
That's what Dr. Wallach says. He says it's when they inject it in a vaccine with the tetanus or whatever it is, it causes an adjuvant effect with that and confuses the body, that it's the boosting effect of the aluminum on the pathogen that's causing the autoimmune response.
Yeah, it's not the aluminum. It's indirectly it is, but it's not the aluminum directly causing the problem. But at any rate, when you have a deficiency of aluminum, you get 4 arms, 6 legs, and talk about Spider-Man, right? Well, a couple of years ago, there was this little girl in India who had 4 arms and 4 legs, and her mother was deficient in aluminum. Well, if it makes up 12% of the Earth's crust, how could she be deficient? Well, she had gluten intolerance. She couldn't absorb enough aluminum, and the baby was born with all these limbs. Now, this happened many, many times over the years because they have these statues of these gods in India. I think it's Krishna that has 4 arms and 4 legs, a very famous Indian god. And so aluminum, even in adults, you get a type of liver cirrhosis when you don't have enough aluminum. So you need it, okay? You just need it in parts per million. Same way with arsenic.
But then there's a difference between sodium fluoride that you need some of, calcium fluoride, and sodium fluoride, and then they manipulate the structure and make it a deadly acid. And then what doctors have explained to us here, but break this down, it then fills up the thyroid so the good things can't get in. It's a blocker, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Of course, the thyroid is a funny organ. It requires all 90 essential nutrients. The thyroid gland requires all 90 essential nutrients. It's kind of funny. You ask a doctor, what does your thyroid need? They'll say iodine. Well, iodine is part of the structure of the hormone, but to function, the thyroid needs all 90 essential nutrients, 16 minerals, 16 vitamins, 12 essential amino acids, 3 essential fatty acids. And anything that interferes with that is going to cause, if the thyroid doesn't work, they test you and say, well, all your lab tests are normal. We don't know why your thyroid's not working. Well, it might be missing copper. It might be missing selenium. It might be missing zinc because it needs all of them. One of my favorites, of course, is thiamine, vitamin B1. Congestive heart failure, the most common cause of heart death in America, is caused by a thiamine, vitamin B1 deficiency. It's actually caused by a deficiency of one vitamin. We get people off the heart transplant list all the time by giving them... It's
incredible, and people should just take the challenge and do the Alex Pack. That's the essential fatty acids, the Osteo FX Plus, and the Beyond Tangy Tangerine. Those 3 things.
Yes, sir.
What else, though? People want to do more. What else should they be doing?
Okay, well, it depends. If they're active, if they're out there doing physical work, throwing bales of hay, carpenters, working in a factory, roofing, or athletes, or they're working out, regardless of your age, or sweating, you want to take the Rebound, which is our sports drink, has 100 nutrients in it. Gatorade has 2. 100, 2, which is your choice. If you have somebody you love, you're going to give them a sports drink that has 2 nutrients or 100. According to the Center for Disease Control, Alex, each year in America, 75,000 to 100,000 young people under the age...
Let's talk about it on the other side. We'll be right back. Dr. Joel Wallach is our guest in studio. We're live here into the 4th hour today. If you've got a question or a comment for him, the toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231. And again, I promote the longevity products and have them discounted at InfoWarsHealth.com. And if you want to join and get discounts, become a distributor, InfoWarsTeam.com. Now, continuing, you got cut off by the break. I know we were trying to get Theo, the famous, now retired, that you helped stay in 10 more years. professional basketball player. We were talking about rebound with 100 essential nutrient sports drink versus 2 in Gatorade, or what is it? Also, yeah, also 2 in the other Powerade one. And again, it's all available at InfoWarsHealth.com in 2 different flavors, Berry Boost and also the Citrus Punch. They have a powder and a liquid. And when you do purchase it there at InfoWarsStore.com, it also supports our broadcast, not just the discounts there. But regardless, this is a revolution against tyranny, just like we have the national opt-out against the T.S.A. and film them, just like we're going for states' rights. We're about what works here. And I bring you what I've researched and I believe in. So I've been back and forth bantering here, Doc. Before we go to calls, the toll-free number to join us, 800-259-9231. Finishing up with the sports drink situation.
Well, we had 75,000 to 100,000 young athletes under the age of 30 drop dead each year in America. We're talking about people who work in an office and they'll jog over the lunch hour, and they drop dead. We're talking about cardiomyopathy, heart disease, which is a selenium deficiency.
It's the marathon runners.
Exactly. 75,000 to 100,000 each year, according to the Center for Disease Control. And some of them die of ruptured aortic aneurysms, a copper deficiency, cardiomyopathy, heart disease, one of the more common ones. And I've done 1,200 autopsies, 1,200 autopsies on kids under the age of 10 that have died of a cardiomyopathy heart attack. Okay? And this is so tragic when all you have to do is give them the Alex pack appropriate for their body weight, give them a little extra of the rebound. They're getting all these nutrients, and you'll avoid all that. We'll save 75,000 to 100,000 great kids every year.
Unbelievable. I knew multiple kids playing football that just dropped dead and died in Rockwall.
Yep.
People can look up when I was at Rockwall middle school and then high school, and you can look it up back in the 80s. And there were 2 deaths while I was there, just where they out on the football field and dropped dead.
Yep. Well, that's how it happens. Ruptured aneurysm, you're playing, everything's fine. You go up for rebound, you come down, you're dead. Same way with cardiomyopathy heart attack. Reggie Lewis, 28 years old, he died of a cardiomyopathy heart attack. All they had to do is give him the Alex pack and 50 cents worth of selenium. He'd still be alive today.
Because the heart's that big, thick muscle that just keeps working and keeps pumping, and it's electrochemical. What happens, Doc, when it doesn't have what it needs?
Well, it just stops. Okay, it's just like, again, that lamp. You pull the plug, doesn't have what it needs. There's not a flow of electrons going through there. Light bulb goes.
Heart runs out of gas, it's over.
That's right. And it's better that you put the oil in the car before the engine burns up. Now,
and as you get older, your heart, your guts get more and more clogged. You're not getting what you need. That heart still boom, 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 24 hours a day.
You know, the reason why I look 50 and I'm 73, Alex, is I've been taking the 90 essential nutrients twice a day since I was 9. Started taking when I was 9.
Now, you're saying you discovered this yourself, but it's kind of like discovering, you know, when you're 14, how beautiful women are. I'm not taking your discovery away. You've helped popularize and everything. But when I worked for Jess Edkins, large animal vet, off and on for 3 years in East Texas, they'd send me down there on the summer. And then one time I got in trouble when I was a sophomore. They sent me, I was out of school for a year. They sent me down there and said, this will teach you. You're going down to work on, you know, a large animal vet, you know, for most of a year, about 9 months. And believe me, I was ready to come back and behave after that. That guy worked like still working. Anyways, looks like Grizzly Adams. People know what I'm talking about down there because I know we have a station in that area. But the point is, that guy, he would always say, oh, you got calves dying, you got, you know, this and that happening. You need to put them on this mineral, that mineral. You need to give them this and that. I mean, he knew that. He was one of the top of his class at A&M. I mean, that's known.
Well, yes, in the animal industry it is. Now, here's why I did it. I had what would be called Tourette syndrome today when I was 4 years old. I was, you know, kind of blinking my eyes and getting facial cramps and would get tetany and fall over, and my friends all said I was possessed. And it got worse every year. By the time I was 9 years old, it was really bad. So my mom took me to an eye doctor, and the eye doctor says, look, can't find anything wrong with the kid, but he has long eyelashes, and I think they're hitting his glasses, curling back, and tickling his eyeballs. That's what's happening here. And I'm only 9 years old, Alex. And I said, nah, that's not right. That can't be right. So I said, what do you want me to do? So the doctor says, well, what don't you do is take this Maybelline eyelash brush and retrain your eyelashes. Now, I'm playing sports, right? That was before Don't Ask, Don't Tell. They'd have ripped my arms off, beat me to death with my arms, right? So I went to school the next day, looked in a nurse's handbook on what causes things. I couldn't find long eyelashes and eyelid twitches, so I found cramps. It said calcium deficiency. So before the bus would pick me up in the morning to go to school, I would have to feed these calves we were going to sell in the auction. And we'd make them a little fatter, a little shinier. We'd give them these...
No, I actually have done that myself. You know, you buy brand new calves, you got to bottle feed them, and you can sell them, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I was giving them these alfalfa pellets, and on the analysis tag, it said calcium. So when I came home that afternoon, I went right to the bar and started eating those calcium filled alfalfa pellets for the calves. For breakfast, I threw the Cheerios out to the chickens, and I had the alfalfa pellets with milk for breakfast and so on. By the third day, my Tourette syndrome was gone. So when I was 9 years old, I knew that doctors didn't know anything about nutrition.
You know, sometimes that could have been your guardian angel telling you that, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think it was a divine appointment, because no 9-year-old kid's going to figure that out by himself. So there had to be a greater hand involved. I do believe that. And I think that's why I give 300 free lectures a year, because I figure if I was given that information, I'm supposed to be giving it out.
So you started taking the animal vitamins and it was over. Yep. Just like people with the microplasm discovered right off the bat, they could go to the feed store, get the cheap antibiotics, boom, they're cured. Nobody tell them.
That's right. When you're talking about rheumatoid arthritis, mad cow disease, a.k.a. Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, and this is going to be published. It's perfect timing because I have another book coming out next year, and there's going to be a whole chapter in there about prions and mad cow disease, because there's a principle involved here that's called Koch's postulates. Back in the day when Pasteur and this Van Leeuwenhoek discovered that there were germs, the germ theory days, it would cause these diseases. It wasn't spontaneous generation. That everybody jumped in, the doctors all jumped in and said, well, these bacteria, these bugs, these germs cause everything. And Koch was a very smart man. He said, no, no, no. You got to be able to isolate the bug that you think's causing it, grow it on an artificial medium, then inject it into a susceptible host, get the disease, isolate it again, regrow it on a susceptible medium. If you get the same bug, then you can say it caused it. Well, with these prions, they haven't done that. They've tried it, but they haven't never said.
That's why they say they haven't proved prions cause it.
That's right. Well, I know it caused it because I got rid of the first case I ever got in 2 months.
And again, how do you reverse it?
Well, it's actually a mineral deficiency, and it goes back to the first descriptions in sheep, which is called enzootic ataxia in sheep. When you look at sheep with enzootic ataxia, they kind of wobble around like a drunk sailor, foam at the mouth, kind of like a mad cow, right? And then the mad cows look like a sheep. When you look at their brains, it's the same disease. So without even doing any lab analysis, I just said, well, if the lesions look the same, if the changes in the brain look the same, it's got to be the same. So I've been looking for about 10 years for somebody with Creutzfeldt-Jacobs disease, which is the human version of mad cow disease. And I just gave him the Alex pack and some extra minerals. 2 months' time is gone. His doctor kicked him out of the hospice because he said doesn't have it anymore.
I know, and again, you cover all this. You break it down. We've got links to it. We've got your books available at InfoWarsStore.com. It is just amazing that the system knows you need these building blocks, but they want you to be sick so that they can then give you all the treatments to pay off their $500,000 student loans. And look, here's an example. We did this a few months ago. We're going to do the whole hour here. We're going to do the whole hour. We're doing it. This is awesome having you here so we can take the calls. But Dan Badondi's out there. He's perfect to do this. Remember those articles out of the newspaper? It was in Texas papers and some others that said, we showed this like 5 times a month ago. I don't remember the exact headline, but it was, you know, something like, take your flu shots. And then it said, it's a lie. There's no side effects from flu shots. Yeah, it was like, take your flu shots, be a good neighbor. Print me that article. And then we show the CDC's own site where it says brain damage, death, autoimmune disorders, Guillain-Barré. What's happening with the vaccines? Because here's my point. The doctors know up until 4 years ago that that the insert said, don't give a pregnant woman any vaccines. It can cause an autoimmune problem. You know,
birth defects.
Yeah, birth defects. But, I mean, everyone knew that. That was in the insert, still is. 4 years ago, they started saying, no, pregnant women need it more. It's like they want to just try to go all the way and just see what we'll put up with. And everywhere, flu shot, flu shot, flu shot. Meanwhile, they're on the news, in Parade Magazine, you name it, everywhere saying there is no side effects. It's a conspiracy theory. Don't believe the people. And then meanwhile, the CDC's got 24 pages of links to hundreds of pages, each link, how it'll kill you. And then they've done big studies where the shots they're taking for the HPV are being found with this RNA and stuff in the brains of women dying taking it. They're having autoimmune disorders and bleeding out of every orifice. They died 6 years ago during the trials. They still approved it. I mean, this is not just dumbed down people doing this. I mean, doctors know when they now say a woman needs shots, more shots when you're pregnant. They know full well they were taught in medical school, don't ever give a pregnant woman a shot. So what's going on here? What's happening?
Well, again, the medical system has legislated themselves, Alex, into a monopoly. They're the only monopoly that's legal in America, the medical system. They've killed off all their competition legislatively.
Skip the break, guys. Go ahead.
Everybody who is not an MD is a quack, according to the MDs and the laws they've gotten into place. Now, Chinese traditional medicine has been around for 10,000 years before the Egyptians, and medical doctors say these guys are quacks. Well, the Chinese don't have any health care problems like we have, right? They're still using their herbs and acupuncture and all that kind of stuff.
And they're in the middle of a toxic waste dump.
Exactly.
They live longer than us now, yes. and their rivers catch on fire routinely.
Exactly. And so their medical system works very nicely, thank you, with these quacks that they've been using for 10,000 years. And the medical system, and you know the name Benjamin Rush?
Yes.
Okay, Benjamin Rush, of course, was George Washington's personal military physician.
Killed him.
Yeah, he was the first, let's see, he was the first U.S. Surgeon General. And also...
First psychiatrist.
First psychiatrist, okay. And he also was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. And he actually sent Jefferson a note, which I used in my presentation. And this was for insertion into the Constitution when they're talking about the First Amendment, freedom of speech and freedom of religion. He said, we also need to put in there freedom of what medical type of doctor you want to use. And if you don't, there's going to be one class of men, as I'm quoting him.
Yeah, no, he was a good guy then. He wasn't the doctor that
killed. He didn't.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Rush is a good guy. I'm going from memory.
And so he said, if we don't put this in the Constitution, that people have the right to choose what doctor they want, one group of doctors is going to take over, and it's going to be the Bastille of America.
No, I remember actually reading that. Now, my memory's not coming back on that. We should do a report on that.
Yep, and that's worth a whole day, because this guy was great, and his worst nightmares from 300 years ago are coming true now, because the medical system is essentially like 25% of our GDP. Okay.
Well, let's go over it all then. I mean, why are we the sickest, the fattest, the dumbest now, from the strongest, the longest lived? What's happened to us, and where is it going before we go to calls?
Okay, well, the reason is, Alex, that we've gone to drugs instead of nutrition. Medical doctors don't get 30 minutes of nutrition in 14 years of medical school. It should be a felony for a medical doctor to say anything about nutrition. I'll give you 2 examples. The worst example I can think of is Alzheimer's disease, which is a physician-caused disease. The 75% of your brain weight is myelin, this insulation material in the brain. When it goes away, the naked nerve fibers all tangle up, short circuit, and you get Alzheimer's disease. That's the short version of what Alzheimer's disease is. Well, this myelin that makes up 75% of your brain weight is 100% cholesterol. So you go on a statin drug to lower cholesterol, you're eating egg white omelets, and you're eating things like egg beaters, you're eating boneless skinless chicken breasts, you're eating tofu instead of red meat, you're avoiding butter and dairy products, and you're eating oils like canola oil, that kind of stuff. Your brain goes away. And so they've created this terrible dementia that didn't exist 40 years ago.
And we could pull up right now on screen, studies, brain volume getting smaller, IQs lowering. The brains are shriveling.
Yeah, exactly, because they're lacking cholesterol.
And the system knows that. They say, don't have salt, don't have fat. But meanwhile, they push all these hydrogenated fats, which are the artificial ones.
Right, it was margarine, essentially. And one of the things I show in my presentation, Alex, is our billionaires today, March of 2011, I mean, last year, these billionaires can afford the most expensive doctors, most expensive drugs, healthcare systems, insurance. Bill Gates has a 75,000 square foot home because he's got an indoor pool, he's got an indoor track, he's got a tennis court in his house, all that kind of stuff. They should be the healthiest guys on earth, but billionaires don't live to be 100. There's never one been living to be 100. Their average lifespan is only 78. And the people who live the longest are illiterate people that don't go to kindergarten. We have one who died in December of 2008. This guy's name is George Francis. He died at 112. He's the oldest man in America, and illiterate. And this guy, when they asked his daughter, what did your daddy do to live to be 112? She said he ate lard, eggs, and dairy products.
I was going to stop right there. I'm not going to use any names, but I actually know a prominent ranching family here in Austin, Texas, and the grandpa, I think he died at 103, and that's all he ate was eggs and giant pounds of bacon.
Well, I'm not big on the bacon, but I like to eat 8.
Well, no, but I'm not even saying that's good. But it was like the joke was he eats Bluebell ice cream, he eats giant things of bacon and steaks.
Well, Bluebell ice cream, Alex, is an essential nutrient.
I just drove through Brenham this weekend. I had to get out of here for F1. I was gone one day. Oh, yeah. You like Bluebell?
Oh, yes, sir.
What's your favorite flavor?
Oh, vanilla. I just love vanilla.
Yeah, I like the Dutch chocolate, but I stay away from it. You need to come out with a Beyond Tangy Tangerine flavor of Bluebell.
Well, we actually, that's a good idea. We could do that. We'll contact them. That's a good idea.
Fruit punch Bluebell.
Well, there you go. But we actually want people to get on that Alex pack because we need these 90 essential, and this is why we're so sick. You can't name me a disease that's not caused by a nutritional deficiency. Okay, that's very scary. Alzheimer's disease, other dementias, Korsakoff syndrome, vascular dementia.
Hyperactivity disorder.
Oh, my goodness. Back when I was a kid, there was no such thing as hyperactivity or ADD.
I've seen TV shows, the kid's ADD, and they're interviewing the kid, and he has, like, Jolly Rancher bag and a Coca-Cola. You're giving him a stimulant, and the kid's sitting with giant black circles around his eyes, and they're going to put him on antipsychotics.
Well, I take those kids, and in 2 weeks' time, they're perfectly normal. You just get them off the sugar, get them off the gluten, you know, make them eat 4 eggs a day. You get them on the, put it in Bluebell ice cream, right? Put the eggs in there, put the eggs on top of it, and then you get them on the Alex pack appropriate for their body weight, and it all goes away. But they got to stay away from sugar, and they got to stay away from gluten. No wheat, bran, or oats, and give them the 90 essential nutrients. All that autism, all the ADD, ADHD, hyperactivity goes away. And that's a profound statement. But if you look in that book, Rare Earth Spin Cures, which I believe you have in your store.
Yes.
Rare Earth Spin Cures. I have pictures how you don't need to go to a child psychiatrist to diagnose it. Just get a coloring book and give them just a whole slew of colors. And somebody with ADD or ADHD or autism, they'll pick out the darkest colors. They'll pick out black, purple, dark green, and they won't stay in the lines. They just scribble all over the page. Whereas somebody else, another kid who doesn't have these problems, they'll be impeccable about choosing the perfect color for whatever the subject is, and they'll stay within the line. They're very fastidious about staying in the lines. I was actually up in Canada a couple of weeks ago going to a private school to lecture to a bunch of teachers up there, and they had this hallway with all these kids' colorings. They were like second-grade kids, their colorings, like you see in some of these breakfast houses during Thanksgiving and Easter and Christmas and Halloween. They have all these color pictures. And they said, oh, that one's got autism. That one's got, this one's got autism. And all whispering that you got 100%. How did you know those kids had autism? I said, well, look, he just took black and red and dark purple and just not even staying in the lines. He said, that's typical of those kids. Everybody else stayed in the lines, chose the right color. In that book, Rare Earth Spin Cures, shows you how to diagnose those things yourself, how to deal with it, how to get rid of it. And don't get these kids on Ritalin. Do not do that.
Well, they admit Ritalin actually shrinks the brain and expands the heart. Why is that?
Well, it interferes with nutrients. Anytime you have the heart enlarged, you're looking at deficiencies of thiamine, congestive heart failure, or cardiomyopathy heart disease, a deficiency of selenium. So many of these drugs actually interfere with the metabolism of nutrients, okay? And so that's how you get these diseases as secondary to drugs. For instance, you take cortisone, prednisone, you're going to get type 2 diabetes and arthritis. It's just given.
Why is diabetes, you have the number here, but
30%.
30% now. They are estimating the next 10 years, 50% or higher, and people can just type in 50% to have diabetes in 10 years, and you'll pull up MSNBC, you name it. In fact, guys, just do that so people can see we're telling the truth. I mean, and they never talk about what's causing it. It's always, let's find a cure.
Well, see, they're doing research and raising money. That's an industry, right? We've known for 70 years what causes type 2 diabetes, and that's why I can make somebody an ex-diabetic in 2 to 14 days. I'll tell you a great story. Just take 2 minutes or less. There's a guy who owns the 3rd largest medical laboratory in America. He services 7,000 hospitals and hundreds of thousands of doctors' offices every day. His name is Jerry Murphy. He said I could use his name. And he had terrible diabetes, brittle diabetes. His blood sugar was like 300 with injectable insulin. Couldn't get it down. His A1C hemoglobin was like 8.9, supposed to be below 5. And we had a mutual friend introduce us, and this guy's very skeptical. He's got 3 PhDs in medical chemistry, that kind of thing. And he says, okay, Wallach, he says, this guy's been bragging on you, and I don't believe you. He said, but I'll give you 90 days. If you can get rid of my diabetes in 90 days, where my numbers all come into normal without medication, I'll be your best friend. I'll fly around my jet planes, and I'll show up spontaneous. You won't know it. I'll just show up someplace when I have time, and I'll give my testimony. But if you can't, if you fail, I'm going to hire somebody who will dog you every day for the rest of your life and stand up and interrupt your meetings and throw eggs and tell them you're a quack and all that kind of stuff. Okay, let's go for it. He was kind of shocked that I didn't equivocate. And so in 2 months' time, His A1C hemoglobin went from 8.9 down to 4.3, way below 5. His blood sugar went down from over 200 down to 62 without medication. So now he's my best friend. And this guy had access to the best endocrinologists, all the experimental drugs, all the newest treatments. This guy is one of the top medical guys in America. So diabetes is the easiest thing to get rid of because it's
in a nutshell, what do you do?
Well, you take the Alex Pack and Sweeties. Just take the Alex Pack and Sweeties, check your fasting blood sugar in the morning before you medicate yourself, and as your blood sugar drops, keep lowering your medication as you've been empowered to do. Goes away in 2 to 14 days.
And it all happens, I mean, go over, all you take's OsteoFX, Beyond Tangy Tangerine, essential fatty acids. We're going to go to calls.
And the Sweeties.
And the Sweeties are the little mineral pills that taste sweet, that my kids love. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Yeah, the Sweeties, that's great for kids. We'll be right back. I'm going to stop hogging Dr. Wallach here in a moment, but if you guys would just give me a document cam shot, wherever you like, just turn the camera on wherever it's aimed here on the table, and I'll put that down there, because we've worked this out. I can just put the camera wherever you want, and I can just drop the article right there, because we've kind of gone through this thing where I'm always moving articles around. The poor guys are wondering where to put it. If they just document cam it right there on a spot, I'll put it right here and show people. It says, take your medicine. Getting a flu shot is part of being a good neighbor. This is out of the Longview News Journal, and a few weeks ago or a month ago, I showed a whole bunch of articles saying the same thing. And it goes on to say, you know, don't believe. And there is no truth in the notion that vaccines will give you the flu. I'm trying to find the part here where they say that there are no side effects. Don't let yourself be fooled by wild rumors. There are absolutely no harm from getting a vaccination. No harm. And I showed this in article after article. No harm from the vaccine. And it goes on to say wild rumors. Now, showing you right here, here is the CDC. Thank you, guys. Possible side effects from vaccines. And you go through here, and this is just a synopsis that's, well, this time it printed 20 pages. It printed like 23 last time. And you go through here. It has subsections that goes to whole other huge PDF files where it talks about mild problems, and it goes through each major vaccine. Headaches, upper respiratory infection, stuffy nose, sore throat, abdominal pain, coughing, nausea, diarrhea, fever. More serious problems, blood and urine or stool, pneumonia, inflammation of stomach, intestines. You know, here's another one. I'll find one that says death here. They've got death, they've got coma, seizures, nonstop crying, high fever of 105, that's moderate. Long-term seizures, coma, or lowered consciousness, permanent brain damage. This is, these are just, I mean, CDC. Here, let me give you the exact website. It's cdc.gov/print.do URL equals http://www.cdc.gov/vaccines/vac-gen/side-effects.htm. I just keep going here. I mean, I'm just death, you know, brain damage. But you heard them, though. There's absolutely nothing. And don't let people give you rumors, Dr. Wallach. What's going on in the vaccines? Then we're going to go to calls.
Well, first of all, vaccines don't protect everybody it's given to. It might, some vaccines only protect 10% of the people, so 90% get the risk, but no protection. And so another problem is with flu shots, knocks your immune system down to almost zero for about 3 months after you get the flu shot. So everybody who gets a flu shot in the fall gets the flu.
That's why the major studies that just came out of Canada, as you know, a Canadian government found it doubled your chances of getting the flu.
That's correct.
This is a great thing to take, man. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're right on top of it. That's good stuff. And if you insist on taking a flu shot, if you want to get that 10% benefit, do it in March. Then by July, your immune system's coming back up, and you might get some protection. You might be one of those 10% that get the protection. The time to get a flu shot is when there's 10,000 people dying an hour, and you need to do something.
If there's a mega emergency, but again, you can't trust these crooks to put something in you because they've all been caught piggybacking things in them.
Oh, that's right. HIV is a good one.
Tell us about that.
Well, how did that show up in all these countries at the same time? Oh, it was when they were giving all these hepatitis shots.
Which they admit in congressional testimony that nobody knows. And who did they find? They went to clinics and convinced gay men, who they know are the biggest vector, because they have hundreds of partners on average, in New York, in San Francisco, in London, in Paris, to take the shot on purpose and then vector it out with their own inoculation into an area of the body not protected.
Yeah, well, that's
cold-blooded.
That's primary site of entry, is rectum.
That is a serious wicked operation.
Well, that's social Darwinism. You know about social Darwinism?
Yeah, tell us about it.
Oh, social Darwinism is kind of the eugenics thing. You make people perfect by killing off the imperfect ones. I remember it was Moonraker in 007.
Yes.
That's what got Lurch on 007's side. But he says, hey, this guy, he's killing off all the people who aren't perfect. And the little gal's looking at him, and he's looking at her, and neither of us are perfect. So we better go with 007 instead of the bad guy. Because back in the day of Darwin, there was one of his cousins who came up with eugenics.
Galton.
There you go, Galton. And he was one of Darwin's cousins, and he came up with the idea, well, gosh, if there is selective things going on out in nature that only the fittest survive, why don't we make the people who are the smartest and the most beautiful, we'll make more of them, and we'll kill off all the ugly ones. We'll kill off all the sharp ones. And it bled into the Second World War, and that's where the Nazis were killing off everybody who weren't the tall, good-looking, blonde Aryan guys.
And that's the problem, is the modern medicine came out of eugenics, and that's why it just can't stop. Yeah, I've seen the state of Texas say, we put the minority kids 69% on drugs and take them from their families because they're bad and they have bad genes. And the liberals all stand up and salute. These are not liberals.
Well, Mengele, you know, he was a Nazi doctor. Why are these bad guys always medical doctors? I don't know, but they are.
Yeah.
There's one to do all these evil experiments on people and to come up with these really weird ideas. And poor Darwin's got to be rolling over in his grave because he never wanted to go there. But they took it and they sort of twisted his...
oh, yeah, then I get emails going, you're attacking Darwin.
No.
Well, I mean, we're not even part of that discussion. Social Darwinism is what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, social Darwinism was something that came out long after he'd retired.
Well, sure, and the robber barons picked it up because it was like, well, I'm killing you. That means, because I'm in charge, it means it's my right to do it. I'm helping the world killing you.
Because we're going to make the human population greater over time.
But you notice eugenics isn't doing that.
Well, that was their goal, but they don't. Of course, it's an evil thing.
We're going to go to phone calls, folks, but Dr. Wallach, you obviously don't listen to my show. We obsess over eugenics, but I know you're a busy guy off giving 300 lectures a year in your own radio show that you normally be doing right now, and I appreciate you coming on with us and all the great team you've got, whether it's Michael Zwirling or whether it's Ted Anderson or all the folks. I want to invite everybody to join InfoWarsTeam.com today. This is revolutionary, and I don't promote things unless I really believe in them, and I haven't even begun to promote longevity yet because I'm so busy doing the news, doing other things, that I can go out and get all the testimonials. When I go out on the road, it's incredible. I can go get my family. I can go, I mean, this is not hot air. I only promote what I believe in, and I believe you will get substantial benefit from the longevity products available at InfoWarsTeam.com or InfoWarsHealth.com. You can also call toll-free 877-551-1301, 877-551-1301. And you can also go to the event that's coming up tonight. We'll tell you at the end of this hour where that's going to be at the Promised Land Church Gymnasium, 1504 East 51st Street, tonight and tomorrow night, 6:30 to 10 p.m. with Dr. Wallach and others. But right now, let's go to your calls. I'll stop hogging him. Mike in Washington, you're on the air with Dr. Joel Wallach. Go ahead.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I just want to say I've been taking the Healthy Digestion Pack for 3 months, and I noticed so much difference in my health, so I want to thank Dr. Wallach for that, and anyone wondering about the products, it's been great. Also, I just ordered your book, Dead Doctors Don't Lie, and I haven't been able to put it down. I finished it in 2 days. It's one of the greatest books I ever read, just a really amazing story. So the first thing I wanted to ask to Dr. Wallach was, have you ever thought about writing a second book, picking up where you left off? And second, for Alex, I don't know if you heard about this up here in Washington. Some farmers got together with the Washington Farm Bureau, and they wrote up a bunch of policy to block federal drones in Agenda 21.
Yes, I did. No, here's what's happening. Everybody's fighting in all directions, and I've noticed with the globalists, if you just go out and confront them and fight them like you've done winning so many times, it's like the Great Oz. It's all a projection. Then when we all start attacking, we're going to win. Because they can only do big, large frontal assaults. They can't handle a whole bunch of us like the Lilliputties tying them down.
Yeah, well, I broke that story on Examiner.com, so if anyone wants to check it out, Washington farmers block federal drones in Agenda 21. It's a pretty cool story.
Very exciting. Yes, we're aware of that. Thank you so much. Your question for Dr. Wallach was?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have another book coming out early next year. It's called Epigenetics, The Death of the Genetic Theory of Disease Transmission. because all these diseases are not genetic. They're actually just nutritional deficiencies. And it picks up exactly where dead doctors don't let off. And so thank you.
And we carry that book at InfoWarsStore.com, I should add. Let's go to Ray in Oregon. Ray, you're on the air. Go ahead. Oh, Ryan. Hello? I can't even read now. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah. I want to thank you for taking my phone call. I'm a first-time caller. Just started listening a couple months ago. But I've just been slowly researching on good health and all that, and I came across that tangerine, and I haven't been able to try it yet. But my question is, have you heard of the Budwick diet? And I know you've advertised the water purification machines, and what about the Cajun water and Tyrant?
Cajun water, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, Cajun water is a structured water, and we have one. It's called 360. We have our own structured water. And so we like structured waters and alkaline waters. We just don't like people to drink them during meals because they do neutralize stomach acid and they're going to set you up for some allergies and things like that. So I like to drink our structured water and alkaline water at least a half hour before meals, half hour after meals, before you go to bed, when you wake up in the morning. That's the way to take it. Don't drink it as a drink with meals because it will neutralize your stomach acid.
Well, that's like they talk about distilled water is a great diuretic. It's a great way to actually chelate, according to what I've read from different medical journals. But if that's all you're getting, it's going to flush everything out. It's good to have a mixture, right?
Well, there's two things you can do. Number one, if you're going to drink distilled water, you have to take it again a half hour before, half hour after meals. Don't take it with supplements because distilled water is a hungry water. It'll actually pull minerals out of your body. And the other thing you can do, if you make your own distilled water, you're buying distilled water, put 1 ounce of our just plain plant minerals in there. Just put 1 ounce of plant minerals per gallon. And that makes it nice.
Exactly, exactly. So it has a lot of benefits to pull the bad stuff out that'll also pull the good stuff.
Yeah, and you put the plant minerals in there, then you don't have to worry about pulling.
All right, thank you, caller. Donna in New Hampshire, you're on the air with Dr. Wallach. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. And I've been doing the Alex Pack for well over 6 months. The only problem that I'm having is with the EFAs. Is there anything that I can substitute? Because it seems like with my husband and I, my husband mainly has gout, and the fish oils just make him go into excruciating pain.
Sure.
And I also have problems.
Well, let me answer one question at a time, dear. Okay. Sure. So yeah, when people have gout, they're going to be sensitive to fish and fish oils and so forth, and that will aggravate symptoms. So what you want to do, we have one that's called Woman's Omega. Woman's Omega is made from evening primrose oil. It's just a plant. It has nothing to do with any...
Yeah, that's in the catalog at InfoWarsHealth.com.
It's called Woman's Omega, and he'll be fine. So you just have to make your Alex Pack separately. In other words, and also you want to keep him away from the OsteoFX Plus, which does have shellfish in it. I would get what we call Cal Toddy. Comes in a quart bottle, like the OsteoFX Plus. It has everything in it except for the shellfish. Be the same dosage, called Cal Toddy, like calcium toddy, like a hot toddy. And then you would do the Beyond Tangerine and do the Woman's Omega. And that'll give him everything.
Yeah, because that makes sense. Some people just can't eat fish or anything.
Shellfish, yep. No, you can't.
Yeah, especially. So it's good to get that. In fact, my wife actually takes the primrose one. And wow, what is it about that, though? Or is it a imaginary? Because it seems like when I take it, the primrose, I tend to get really, like it has like an amphetamine effect.
Well, the primrose oil, and actually all omega-3s, actually affect blood sugar levels. They help your pancreas keep your blood sugars low.
But I mean, I've actually taken it before, and I don't like speeding. And I didn't know that. So it can do that.
Oh, yeah, because it messes around with your blood sugar. And
But the fish oil doesn't do it. Why is it the primrose?
Well, the primrose oil is a greater percentage of omega-3s than the fish oils. It's a higher percentage. It's more. It's the omega-3s doing it. Now,
well, that's the thing. This stuff's like drugs. I mean, it's no, I don't mean bad drugs. I mean, it really has an effect on you.
Oh yeah, no, that's what nutrition does. Alex, is very dynamic. It makes everything work. The thing about gout is your liver is not able to break down uric acid into the separate carbon units, and so you got to make the liver happy too. If your husband has gout, in addition to giving him the Cal Toddy, the Beyond Tangerine, and the Woman's Omega, I would also give him our selenium and our de-stress capsules, because that's going to make his liver happy, and he'll be able to break down the uric acid into little carbon units.
All right, ma'am, does that answer your question? Great question.
That answers. That's perfect. Thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome.
Yeah, no, I've quit taking, because I don't know. I just kind of take different things, because I can't take all this stuff every day. I've never been somebody taking vitamins and minerals and pills, so I try to just, okay, today I'll take this Primrose one, and you know, the next day I'll take your EFA, because I'll be honest, sometimes I burp, and I don't like the fish flavor. But then I've tried other brands that are it's even worse. I mean, what is that?
Well, again, with the fish, it has other things in there. It has fishy stuff in there. It's got fish proteins that make that happen. All the little bugs in your intestine like that, and they make gas. And so when that happens, we actually have what we call EFAs, which are in a darker soft gel capsule. It's just made from flaxseed oil and borage oil.
Yeah, those don't do that. Yeah, so I need to take the black ones.
Yep.
Okay, got it. I just mix it all up.
Well, that's why I
just noticed that when I take that Primrose stuff, look out, man. It's like I won't take it. I mean,
well, when we go protest someplace, let's both take it. Wind us up.
Let's talk to Martha in Hawaii. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hi.
Aloha.
Hello, aloha. My husband has Parkinson's, and I have fibromyalgia. We've been on your Beyond Tangerine. We've been on the OsteoFX. We've been on the EFA, and we've been on the enzymes. Also, I've cut the wheat out of our diet, and I'm taking as many eggs as possible. But I want to know, for the protein, does it have to be beef only, or can you eat pork in substitute of just eating the beef with the eggs?
Okay, well, the eggs, what does your husband weigh?
Just about 200.
Okay, he should be eating 12 to 15 eggs a day. They cannot be fried, sunny side up, or over easy. They have to be, the yolk has to be soft. He's got to be soft poached or soft boiled, like 1 minute eggs, soft scrambled in butter, not margarine or oils. And what do you weigh?
155.
Okay, then I would take 6 to 8 eggs a day. Okay, yourself. And the fibromyalgia, you also need to add our selenium and the glucogel for fibromyalgia, because it's a good thing that you're on the gluten-free diet.
Let me ask you this. How long have you been taking the longevity products?
For a while. Every once in a while, I fall off because, quite honestly, I can't always afford them.
No, I understand, but has it had a positive effect?
Yes, it's wonderful. I feel the difference. I know the effect, and I can feel the difference from the eggs and the protein. Everybody says I'm crazy because you're eating all these eggs. But when I'm on that diet, I feel much better. But I want to find out, can you take too much selenium?
Well, of course you can, especially if it's going 4,000 feet per second, right? But basically, you can't afford it. You'd have to buy 60 bottles a day. You can, yes, take too much selenium, but it's not practical. You're not going to do it.
Just what I'm taking in the tangerine, I'm getting enough?
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I would take more. I would get our selenium and take 2 of those capsules twice a day.
Yeah, see, Aaron Dykes did everything you said and lost 92 pounds. I've done like 10% of what you said and lost 40 and feel a lot better. We'll be right back. Final segment with Dr. Joel Wallach, but we're going to do some interviews here the next few days that'll also be aired here and there for everybody. Just amazing that the system knows that our life expectancy is going down. They know that they're poisoning us. The average doctor's brainwashed and thinks they're a high priest and thinks their patients are absolute idiot scum. There are a lot of good doctors out there in the medical system as well who actually know what's going on. And Dr. Wallach, I mean, I know more and more, because we've talked about this off air before, of mainline doctors are starting to wake up.
There are some. I think more pharmacists are converting. More and more pharmacists are coming to us saying, I just can't do it anymore. I just can't give these prescriptions. It started about 20 years ago. I actually got a pharmacist in Palm Springs, California, who refused to fill prescriptions for statin drugs because I convinced him what it was doing, causing Alzheimer's disease, erectile dysfunction, adrenal exhaustion, PMS, menopause, all that kind of stuff.
Well, my dad's done the research, and he's an oral surgeon and a dentist, and he says it ought to be illegal. Well, I've had Dr. Blaylock, a brain surgeon, on. It literally eats your brain.
Yeah, causes Alzheimer's disease. Statin drugs.
And now they want to put it in water for kids.
For 8-year-olds, that's right. And this is where we got to draw the line, because if you let them give an 8-year-old child statin drugs, they won't live to be 20.
And everyone will wonder why they're dying, and the medical system will Frankenstein them and get, I mean, these are murderers.
Yeah, well, they'll say it's autoimmune, your body's attacking itself.
Unbelievable. Let's talk to Brian in Ohio. You're on the air with Dr. Joel Wallach.
Hey, thanks, Alex. Hey, Dr. Wallach.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any suggestions for people suffering with asthma? I've had it for 2 years, and if you can give me a little help here.
Okay, well, this is one of my favorite diseases. You can get rid of that in 2 weeks. Let me ask you 2 questions. Do you have any history of eczema, dermatitis, dry skin, psoriasis, rosacea?
None.
Okay, what about any constipation where you need laxatives or fiber to have regular bowel movements?
Nope.
Okay, better ask you another one. Did you have diarrhea? Did you have it the other way?
Sometimes.
Ah, okay. Yeah, you have a gluten intolerance. You must get off of gluten. What do you weigh?
217.
217. Okay, you have to get off of gluten, no fried foods, no processed meats or nitrates and nitrites, because they actually use wheat as filler in things like pastrami and pepperoni and sausage and so on. So you got to give up those kind of processed meats. Again, no oils, no margarine, salad dressings, cooking oils. If you eat canned fish, it's fine, but it got to be packed in water, not oil. The supplement program, you need 2 Alex packs per month. 2 Alex packs per month. You're going to take 1 ounce of the Osfex Plus at breakfast and dinner, 2 scoops of the Ontane Tangerine NutriCrystals at breakfast and dinner, 3 of those EFA Pluses at breakfast and dinner. And if you get off of gluten and do that 2 Alex packs a month, you'll get rid of your asthma in 2 to 4 weeks.
How is it causing the asthma?
Okay. Asthma is caused by a deficiency of omega-3 essential fatty acids. They're required by the lungs as a raw material to make a hormone called prostaglandins. The purpose of the prostaglandins is to keep the bronchi open. You don't have prostaglandins, your bronchi close, you get asthma. And so it works every time. I mean, I have dealt with kids of some very famous people, political people, theologians who are very TV evangelists and things. Their kids are, they're 11 years old, they haven't had any success at treating them with medical approach. In 2 weeks' time, they're cured. I can use a cure word because it's cured. Okay, nobody can find it. It's gone because there's a hormone that requires this omega-3 as a raw material for your lungs to make this hormone. Keeps it open. And usually, I'd say 99% of the time when you have asthma is because you have gluten intolerance and you cannot...
And the 1% is you're working in a toxic plant or something.
Exactly.
All right, folks, we're out of time. Dr. Wallach, sorry the other callers. Amazing interview.
Thank you, Alex. You're a great host. Love you.
No, it's great having you. Thank you so much. InfoWarsHealth.com, InfoWarsTeam.com, or you can also call toll-free 877-551-1301 to have all your questions answered, 877-551-1301. And tonight at the Promised Land Church, 630 Austin, Texas, Promised Land Church, 1504 East 51st Street. I'll see you back tonight. InfoWars Nightly News.